本当？見えないでしょ？どこにいるのかな？見えないよ。What's good, Internet? It is Friday, July 16th, and you are listening to Waypoint Radio, episode 410. I'm your host, Austin Walker. I'm joined by Rob Zachney.
Good morning.
Patrick Klepek.
Go around, come to me last.
Okay, and Cado Contreras.
Hi, how's it going?
And Patrick Klepek.
You weren't hype enough. I'm ready to get you hyped. Are you ready to get hyped? Are you ready to get fucking hyped? Are you ready to blow through the fucking roof right now?
What's good, Internet?
Here it is. Look at this trailer.
It's not Monday, it's Friday!
Look at it.
July 16th.
World?
Click it. What?
Wait, what am I clicking? Look
at the group chat.
Yes, let's fucking go!
Click it. This is one of the most hyped trailers I've ever seen. I'm ready to get
Take
anime.
the plunge! World Flipper pre-registration trailer, Pinball Adventure!
Are you ready? All right, here we go. Get that trailer queued up.
It's ready. It's ready.
Oh, are we gonna go in together?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
You ready?
Yes.
Is
Now
Rob
I am.
ready? Okay,
3.
1, 2, 3.
You're counting up? What are you doing?
Oh, no,
We're going.
We're counting down. We're counting down.
Is this a House Flipper sequel?
Yes.
3, 2, 1,
go! Take the plunge
I'm ready to take the plunge, motherfucker!
into an epic pinball adventure. This is a trailer for World. Oh, Alk is here. That's a name. Oh, this is a bop.
Yeah.
Stoic sweetheart.
This is gonna be on my cell phone. I don't have a ring. I hadn't a ringtone in a decade. About to have.
I
one.
don't trust that motherfucker.
That's
bunny's
an evil
the first
animal.
champion?
Yeah.
That evil pinball animal. It's happening. The pinball
Wait, sorry, my
gotcha
phone
game
can be a
we
pinball
wanted.
table?
Yeah, your phone is the pinball table, and all your friends are here to do magic attacks on the pinballs. Like this fox person.
I'm ready to meet powerful allies. I've been saying that all year long. You know
There's
I've been
Marina,
saying this.
Marina,
Pirate.
Suizen, Fira, yeah, sure. Okay,
Cagliostro.
Wait, is that just? Okay, this is the same company. These skills look sick.
The art in this game is so good. People
Upgrade
know.
your units. God damn.
Us and I have been waiting
Wait,
Character
years for
episodes.
this game.
Yeah.
Yo, there's actual co-op? Sick.
Wait, I missed it. Did that say co-op?
Yeah, it said co-op.
Can we get the audio of this underneath while we're watching
absolutely.
it, just so that
Yep.
people can hear?
So people
how
understand
good
why we're so
the
hyped.
hype levels. Okay.
I didn't realize that was Psy Games.
Yeah, that's why I said Cagliostro. That's just Cagliostro from Grand Blue.
Yeah.
World Flipper is a gacha pinball RPG mashup that has just a really cool art style, and it came out it's been out in Asia for like 2 years.
2 years. Yeah, I have friends who've played a bunch of it.
I check the World Flipper Reddit like once every 6 months when it like filters into my brain. It's like, oh, remember that?
Yeah.
And I went down the path of, well, I guess I could buy an Android phone and I could download it and I could follow some of these translations. And I was like, no. And then finally they announced they were doing a localized version. And that has now pre-registration is live.
Yeah, I'm going to pre-register.
I pre-registered in both ways. I gave my email, I downloaded the app.
That way
whatever.
you get both the 4-star Orisa and Lodestar beads and also a 4 or 5-star exclusive ticket, which will get you a better character.
Nah.
So.
That's what I'm all about.
Of course.
I'm the gacha man. I love games.
That's a different anime. It's about mechas, I think. Gacha crowds.
It's about social media and fights. It's
right.
good.
Okay. Cool.
The gacha. Yeah, it's my interview style. I'm the gacha.
Gacha man. Yeah. The speaking of gacha shit, really quick, I will say, I feel like we've talked about and then deleted conversations about Genshin like twice in the last year. But Genshin's about to drop its big new 2.0 thing, which is
That's alongside its next gen update, right?
We should brace for Impact.
Yeah, people should brace for me playing a lot more Genshin, is what I'll say.
Yeah.
Some conversations about Genshin.
But
A game that I still think
it is the next gen version too, right?
I have no.
Or is that already?
I'm not playing it. I think the PS5 version already dropped.
Okay.
I think that I have a friend who plays on PS4 and upgraded the PS5. Oh, the thing that's finally coming is linking your PlayStation accounts to your PC.
Oh my god,
accounts, which they did not have at the jump for some reason. I think they had crossplay.
It's the
other
Sony
directions,
thing, right? It's
that's what everyone guesses. That's what I would guess, but I don't.
Because it was the only one,
know,
right? Like you could play PC to mobile,
and
it'd be fine.
Yeah. So
Does it exist?
I'm trying to scan this.
Right?
People, if you're watching,
okay.
They have said they have a Switch version in development.
Yes.
That I believe they were at some point promising that a private beta would happen last year, but well, I would say COVID, except that when I interviewed those developers, they went back to the office pretty quickly. Like they've.
I will say this about there was a very nice thing about the 2.0, and so for people who don't follow Genshin stuff, who don't play it, I still play that game like a lot. Again, I have issues with the way that all gacha games prey on gambling addiction. I have issues with gacha in general, but I personally know how to play those games in a way that like doesn't break my bank and can get a lot of joy out of them, especially because that particular game scratches so many itches for me in terms of exploration, combat design, stuff like that. And normally they do their like update trailers using voice actors from the English dub of the game, and they're not like in character, but they kind of slip in and out of their character voices, and they get to have fun and be like, oh hey, here's this upcoming thing, and blah blah blah. But for the big 2.0 announcement, they just did a subtitled stream with members of the Chinese development team, which is really nice because like I've never seen any of those people. It's always been filtered through anime characters and English dub voice actors. And so to see like the head of story, the head of the, one of the music producers talk about how they took inspiration from Japanese music for their music, in this new zone. Was really cool, and so I was excited. People should go just watch the trailer at least for this big update that's coming. It looks sick. So, speaking of games about exploration, and I mean honestly, part of the reason I love Genshin so much is because like Breath of the Wild 2 isn't out yet, and that game scratches some of those itches. There is something that's coming out. Is it out this week or is it out?
Yeah, it'll be out when this podcast is out. I believe it comes out today as we're recording on Thursday.
Do I need to play The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword HD edition? HD, it's just called Skyward Sword HD, right?
I think it's just Skyward Sword HD. No. Well, I mean, if you have Genshin coming up, if you were going to have,
I do
like things like that. Those itches
if I have those needs
You've played
met
it
already,
before, right?
Me?
Yeah.
I've never played Skyward Sword.
No.
Absolutely not.
Okay.
Yeah, most people don't need to.
Most people don't need to.
The Skyward Sword is interesting. It comes at like a really like strange.
Skyward Sword is interesting. No one talks about Nintendo games like this. You don't hear like, oh yeah, it's an interesting game. You don't need to play it about most Nintendo games.
Well, Skyward Sword needed to walk so Breath of the Wild could run.
Right.
There is a lot of Breath of the Wild concepts in here, like stamina,
right?
Weapon degradation, like that stuff started here, clunkily, poorly, in a not particularly great game, but nonetheless, like you see elements of what Nintendo would was gesturing at in this game that they would move towards more fully embracing in Breath of the Wild. Skyward Sword came out for the Wii. Not only did it come out for the Wii, it came out at a flex point for the Wii. We had, and during our Switch course discussion from last week, one of the things we discussed was, well, where is the natural point where Nintendo would want to introduce a Switch Pro, partially because like sales are slowing down and they need to reinvigorate things. And on the Wii, one of those moments was the introduction of Wii Motion Plus, which was an add-on that would click in clunkily to the bottom of your Wii remote and give it much more accurate motion controls. And it was really like, it felt like quite a leap at the time. Whereas like the motion controls you did for Wii Sports were like really broad stroke, like swings of that controller. Whereas with Motion Plus, you had a lot of specificity. Like it felt like you were holding, not quite 1-to-1, but like really, really close.
Right.
And it was neat technically speaking. But I don't know that Nintendo ultimately found a ton of actual like meaningful applications for it. But one of the ones they really pushed was like to play Skyward Sword, you needed Wii Motion Plus. You didn't just need a Wii. You needed to actually purchase their accessory, like the Rumble Pack equivalent. Skyward Sword is a game that takes place in a Skyloft, a sky world. It's a world in which people don't explore the surface. It is, by all accounts, a calamity, to put it in Legend of Zelda terms.
Sure.
And people fly around on these big birds that you have when you are born. Like there is a bird that speaks to you. You have, this really personal bond, to the point that these people can leap off of the edges of Skyloft, whistle, and their bird will come running and pick them up. That really does not seem like a reliable.
No.
You could do it 100 times in a row for me. I would never feel safe.
There are even Skyloft police, where they're I guess maybe not police. Like it doesn't seem like there's not a lot of people in Skyloft. I'm not sure a whole lot of arresting is happening. But
okay.
if you can fall off, I think it's early on when you can't call your bird. And then, like, there's somebody, like, watching out for you. It's like, hey, like, you shouldn't be jumping off here, buddy. That'll catch you. And, like, that's the sort of, like, the setup is, like, differently than, although I guess similar to Breath of the Wild, where other Zelda games, Zelda, the character, is really just a princess in another castle. It's a MacGuffin to get Link to go on a quest. One thing that I think Skyward Sword and Breath of the Wild have in common is, there are still faults with, just not making her playable or giving her more agency in the story. But like Zelda is a character that you care about in Breath of the Wild. She has emotional arcs, a reason for existing that is not yet in the controller's hand, but like she's more central than just like a plain MacGuffin. And that is also something that is part of Skyward Sword, in which when you start the game, it is about this relationship between Link and Zelda, in which, boy, you get some strong vibes that Zelda just would like if Link could just get his shit together and kiss her, like show a little bit. Zelda's ready to bone is like a lot of vibes you get early in this game. Is just like, you motherfucker, like I'm not gonna do all the work here. Like you're gonna have to meet me halfway, and Link is just incapable of emoting or talking. Really,
because does Link feel like he has any characterization in this game? Outside,
you get dialogue choices in Skyward Sword.
I'm just so busy with so many things. I'm getting that Triforce back together. Like it's just not a good time for me.
The thing is that
Triforce is
portrayal
his high school band.
The portrayal of. Portrayal of Link as Skyward Sword is that he's a lazy piece of shit. Like he's
listening now. I'm in.
Yeah,
he's like the setup, the very long, extremely excruciatingly 2-hour long setup for Skyward Sword before anying of.
But you got to learn about Groose. You need all that time to characterize Groose.
Yeah, you got to learn the bully of the island, Groose. But it's coming up on this.
Name. Is that motherfucker with the big head?
Yeah,
weird hair.
Yes,
okay,
yes.
I've seen that guy. I've seen that guy around in real life.
Yeah.
He like exists in the world. He's out there.
Yeah,
Groose is hanging around Brooklyn.
Into a Groose,
trying a little too hard. Thinks he's part of it, but he's really not. He's just being a tryhard.
Yeah,
he's scared. He's a scary little child inside, which is honestly Groose. That is Groose too. Groose is just projecting. But you're coming on this big moment for Link where there's this big race. And it's supposed to be the epitome of like all these skills you've been learning, and then you can go into knighthood, so you become part of the servants of the goddess. Like part of what Skyloft is protecting. Well, you're not really sure, but you're protectors, and the goddess is important.
Right.
And then all of that sort of unfurls as Link begins to start down his path to destiny and all that is entailed in games like this. And yeah, but so you have Link doesn't speak in this, just like he doesn't speak in any other Zelda game, but he is given the opportunity to pick between. I mean, dialogue choices are really stretching it. It's like, hey, how you feeling today? Sure, okay. Like that's like the extent of like what you're working with, but it is illustrative. I think again of Nintendo like playing with some like interesting ideas, and even if again they don't really amount to anything, it might as well not be a dialogue choice. It doesn't impact anything. It has no bearing on the story or even an ability to role play Link in any meaningful way. But that's sort of the setup. Eventually, Zelda goes missing, and Link finds a reason to head down to the surface and start tracking down some dungeons to collect some items to go on a quest.
Presumably, Zelda
missing,
being missing would be one of those reasons, right? Like he's
Yes.
not like, well, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. Like it is one of the I think cool things about the story, which like Skyward Sword is not dissimilar to No Sudden Move, a movie we talked about this week on Waypoint Plus. I like talking about Skyward Sword more than I do playing it. Because I frequently when I get into conversations about the game, it's so divisive. There are things that are interesting. There are lots of things that aren't. And I find that it's spark, and especially in the context of where the series went, it just makes a really fun conversation topic as a pivot point in the franchise. But yeah, like the game doesn't actually do a lot of like setup for like why Link needs to go do what he. I mean, there is a little bit of like, was it Fee is like the robotic
sword spirit,
sword spirit that kind of shows. It's not definitely seems like she's a piece of like machinery technology. Like she's given a bit of a robotic overtones to both how
AI
she looks
computer
and
voice.
yeah,
type stuff.
yeah, definitely like technology that does not jive with like the world that you are in Skyloft. And like Skyloft, like the only reason the people are riding around birds, but then Cado, what's the dude, Beetle, the one that can sell you items. Well, he's got a plane, but he has to pilot that plane with his feet. The only way that ship goes is if he uses his air bike in order to make it go. And one of the probably one of the funniest jokes in the game is the first time I went into his air shop, which has some items that you can't get elsewhere. I didn't have enough money to purchase anything. And as you go to exit, Beetle looks over to you and goes, "Hey, you realize how much harder it is for me to keep this ship in the air when you're on here?" And you have the audacity to look around and not purchase anything. And he opens up a trap door and you just fall through it. And he just boots you out of his little airship.
Yeah, it's good.
But the whole like venture out into the world, has very little motivation from you are a child of destiny. This is what you were meant to do. I mean, there's a little bit of that, but it really is like the girl who should be my girlfriend, the crush that I can't admit, like got taken away from me. And yeah, we're sort of, looks like we're now being wrapped up in something bigger than ourselves. But like, that's really the reason I'm going out to do this. You don't get a whole lot of internal motivation, but like that is like the setup that they're playing with. And it's a little more interesting than what you frequently get from these games. But yeah, so tied to that is the whole motion controls, in which the controller setup of Skyward Sword was that you would, you'd have that nunchuck add-on that you would plug into the Wii remote that gave you like an analog stick and a couple of buttons attached to it. And then you had the Wii remote, and the Wii remote controlled your sword. You would, when you moved it up, it went up. When you moved it down, it went down. You can move it in full 360 degrees, and all of the enemies are set up in that way. So when you meet a bokoblin, right? Like that's like the generic enemy type in Zelda. They are moving their arms and their shield and their weapon in a way where if you attack from the left, like they might be blocking from that area. So you need to purposely attack from the right. The sword goes in 8 directions. So you can up, down, left, right, and then all diagonals. And it's incorporated into the puzzles, where like one of the early puzzles is like an eyeball that is deeply attracted to the pointy edge of your sword, and there seems to be no way to get into a door until you just fumble around with the controls enough to realize that if you turn it into a circle a couple of times, the eyeball gets dizzy and goes, "Oh, I don't want to do this anymore," and it just falls off the door. It's like very clever and funny, and I always really liked the combat. I thought it like gave like a really interesting twist on what otherwise in Zelda is kind of spamming attack and shield, dodging, and then using whatever like toolkit gimmick was like set up for that boss. Like the real focus of the Zelda series, really until Breath of the Wild, was not spending a ton of time thinking about what's happening moment to moment in combat. Those were just kind of flavor more than anything else before you got to the next puzzle, the next area, the next environment. It's like, what do I use my boomerang for? And so when they do the Switch version, they are faced with a bit of a conundrum because the game cannot really just map to hit A for attack. You would have to do fundamental rethinking of enemy design. Like you'd have to do a remake of Skyward Sword, like a proper from the ground up. We're going to rethink what this game is. And that's just not the kind of time and energy that Nintendo commits even to a game like Super Mario 64, which like really needs like that sort of like ground up, like rethinking and recontextualizing. And so they land in two very awkward places with the Switch version. You can play without motion controls, and then what happens is, so if you do the motion controls, it's basically how it was on the Wii. Instead. The one advantage you get now is you have a second analog stick. You didn't have two analog sticks on the Wii.
Sure.
So you didn't have a free motion camera. So on the Wii, what you're doing was constantly hitting a button that would center the camera behind Link constantly, and it sucked so hard. So what you frequently ended up doing instead was relying on the Z targeting, the lock-on function, to sort of like actually center yourself. So you just like find an enemy, use the lock-on, and it was imperfect. It was very clunky, but it was what they were working with because they didn't have the second analog stick. With two Joy-Cons, you've got one on the left and right, and so if you play with motion controls, you get I think that the accelerometers and the Joy-Cons are even more accurate than they were in the Wii Motion Plus. So you get some really nice feeling motion controls, and you get that second analog stick, which is cool. What I frequently found, though, was similar to how I felt playing Skyward Sword, is that I really like the combat feel, but sometimes I like it. Thus means you have to think a lot about how am I sitting on the couch? How am I sitting in this chair? The Switch has problems the Wii didn't have, in which it will not quite desync, but you need to reset the calibration.
That's been my experience with Switch motion controls from the jump. They're just as good moment to moment, but they are like bound to shift. Even the motion controls have a sort of drift.
Everything in the Switch has a drift, and it's specifically because I might be getting some of the tech wrong here, but I believe it has to do with the fact that the Wii had its sensor that you plugged in specifically that was on top of the television, and so it was just able to keep track of what you were doing at all times to more of a degree than what's happening with the on the Switch.
Right.
But like whatever the technical reasons, even if I've fudged that, the long and short of it is that I frequently found that I would like pause, like actually swinging the sword was fine, but like pausing a menu, dealing with any sort of interactivity with the pointer, it's just off the screen, and then I've got to reset it, and maybe I've got to adjust myself in my seat. That goes against so much of what I find enjoyable about the Switch, which is the ability for it to fit into my life at any moment with that gives me a free moment. So I switched over to the button only controls, and those work pretty well. So the way that functions is that second analog stick then becomes your like Wii remote, like it becomes the motion control.
Always like that, or is it? Yeah.
So you might be thinking to yourself, Patrick, didn't you just say that?
Yeah.
It's really cool that the Switch has two analog sticks and that you don't have to tap. That. Yeah, I said that. Yeah, you'd lose that. It's just gone. So you gain the ability to map the sword to the analog stick, which works really well. It feels good. In some ways, I would argue it feels better than the motion controls. You lose the 1-to-1, but I like it. I don't know, like it, or it's fine, or you don't lose enough for it to not like still be enjoyable, and you can still interface and play off the design that Nintendo has set up with this really unique enemy construction. Like the first time you face the skeleton mini boss was this big skeleton with these giant swords, and the way he positions the swords are just the specific paths that you need to slide the sword down in order to hit him. It's super fucking cool to like hit him with the left, hit him with an up, hit him with the upper right hand diagonal, and like just throw his ass to the ground. Like that feels good in a way that Zelda combat rarely feels like Breath of the Wild combat feels good in a different way because of its setups and its randomness and its uniqueness, but not necessarily because like the actions of like pressing the buttons feels really satisfying. And that's just like wholly unique to Skyward Sword in emphasizing like that element of combat having a depth to it that the series doesn't usually prioritize. But yeah, what you are then left with is they have to map it there. And so they still keep the free camera, but it's on the, what is it? I always forget the L, like the left button, like the first one that your finger touches on the left-hand side. So what you end up doing is you have to hold, if you hold that down, the right analog stick then becomes the camera. So you're basically like running around the game when don't have your sword out, holding this button down.
Why didn't they just swap it? You can't do that in the options, right? You can't go into the options and be like swap what the basic.
Well, it would sort of, they would run it. Anytime you touch the analog stick, the sword is unsheathed.
What I'm saying is, why not give me a button to unsheath the sword and just let it be defaulted to camera control?
Yeah, you could do that. But you can't.
The way I think about it is the camera is like the base level of interaction with the game, like movement and camera, and everything else I do on top of that is on top of that. And so if I have to have something, if there has to be a modality, I would want the modality to be with the sword and not with the camera. If I want to have to like swap into something, I'd want to be able to swap into being in sword mode, not swap into having camera control.
Yeah, I agree. There was probably like some way to, in the controls, to let you just swap between modes, which is like, hey, I'm in camera mode right now. Just let it exclusively be that. Yeah, you don't have that.
Or just make it a toggle instead of a hold.
Sure. Yeah, these are all
right.
I'm glad the game is 6 months out that Nintendo has done this beta test, so we can work out the kinks in the controls. Nintendo's very famous for listening to its customers and adapting the games after release with patches and updates that address those concerns. Because that would be something like that would be great, and I think it would find a nice middle ground where I'm not just holding this camera button down the entire. It ultimately is fine. Some people have difficulty with the ergonomics of the Switch. I know that's why they've been excited for a Switch Pro beyond fidelity, is like hopefully that it would feel better to control. I've never had any issues holding the Switch for lengthy periods of time. It fits my hands really nicely. And in this case, even though it's an imperfect solution, and there seem to be more perfect solutions staring us in the face, as you pointed out, I was fine with it. I've played more of it than I intended to. I intended to play about 3 hours, get through the first dungeon, and report back. And then the basketball game was going on last night, and during the timeouts, I'd be playing more of the game, and suddenly I was 6 hours into the game, and I'm on my way to the second dungeon because Skyward Sword is not. I hesitate to recommend it. I think there are so many other Zelda games you should play in its place if you are unfamiliar with the series, or even if you played Breath of the Wild, fell in love with it, it's I want to see where it came from. I don't feel like that's enough of a pull, but it's hardly a bad game. Part of the reason Skyward Sword gets such a rough rap is because of the generally high quality of these games, across the board, where absent the CDI ones being a goofy lark, the Zelda games are almost all pretty good. They're all pretty good, and then it sort of depends on your taste and particular flashes of excellence. And Skyward Sword is on the lower end of the pretty good, but has enough going for it, especially in the combat design, that I find myself propelled forward in the way that I often do when I pick up any Zelda game. I guess I just wish that it was Twilight Princess instead of this game, because that's the one I haven't played. And so if I'm going to get propelled forward in a Zelda game by sheer fact of the structure of these games really appealing to me, I wish it was in the one that I only played 3 hours of.
Just get your Wii U out of the garage.
Oh, they're gonna port Twilight Princess, so I'll wait. Yeah,
you think so?
I have some confidence in that. Yeah. Cado, you had mentioned you had shown some interest when we were waiting on code for this. Why did you want to play Skyward? Why did you want to play Skyward Sword? Did you play that originally?
Yeah. I lived with a friend who had a Wii at the time when it came out, and I played through most of it. I got to the last dungeon, I think.
You didn't do all right. So you didn't do the best part of the game. One of the all-time good things. The final dungeon of Skyward Sword.
To be
is
fair,
one of the best things Nintendo has ever made.
I can't.
This is why he needs the code.
Yes,
Go get him another code, Patrick.
No,
because
Austin, I have burned my bridge in getting a second code with Mario Golf. I don't mean to like spill too much tea.
No, let's do
None
it.
of it was
Let's
off
go.
the record, but Nintendo makes you jump through some real hoops and like makes you feel bad for asking for a second code. Like, the fuck you need this for? But we're thinking about doing a stream. Oh, a stream, huh? Like, that's not an article.
That'll move the needle.
Okay. Well, that's okay. I'll just go buy it. No, we'll look into it. We'll see if you can get you your second code, Patrick. And they did. And then Cado shot me a message. He's like, hey, if we get a code. I was like, well, I didn't have the heart to like tell him at the time. I was like, I fucked up, Cado. I got that second Mario Golf code. I should have saved it for Skyward Sword. I didn't. I don't think I'm going to get that. I don't think I get a second code.
Okay.
It's the only company that makes me feel like guilty for like, oh, well, let's just see if we can look up the Excel sheet and find the number generator if it spit out another one of those for you.
But to be fair to myself, the reason I didn't finish is because we moved. The Wii was no longer in my house. I probably would have finished it otherwise. I tried really hard that week before we moved. Probably spent a little too much time trying to get there.
Moving's already so stressful.
Yeah,
you don't need to put that on
you.
You know.
Thing. So part of it was that I wanted to see it through, and was curious. And I like actually like as annoying as I found the sort of like weird the way that like every single time you restarted the game and you loaded a save and like it reset. That it remembered that you had picked up an item before, so you didn't need the whole fanfare.
To the point of every time you came back into the game originally on the Wii, if you pick up like a rupee, it's like, do you remember what this? Oh, you know what?
You don't know what
this
is.
You're a dumbass. You forgot what a rupee is. You don't know how that works with the game. You're 32 hours in. Like, come on.
This is a rupee. You got to read about the rupee.
So that was like
tell you about this rupee.
One of the quality of life improvements in like this HD version was like, we turned that off. Like,
Thank
once
God.
you've collected an item once, we don't tell you what it is again. They also, your companion, your Navi equivalent fee, was just so talkative
all the time.
In the original, which I'd be so curious was some of that tied to insecurities related to the fact that the Wii appealed to such a broader audience that what Nintendo had been used to the Super Nintendo was really big. The N64 was big, but paled in comparison to the PlayStation. And then the GameCube was relegated to pretty far behind Like, it's just been a long time. I wonder if they worried that, hey, people don't actually know what all the tenets of our Zelda game are. We're going to make sure we hold their hand both in the item descriptions and in Fee, like, talking to you. I mean, quite literally, like every minute just coming out. It's like, hey, it looks hot up ahead. Careful. It's hot up ahead.
It's worse than Hey Listen, right? Like, it overtook Hey Listen as far as like the thing of like, oh, this character is annoying now. Like, Navi was like, bring back Navi for all like I also like I really enjoyed what I saw of the story, which is most of it, honestly. And I guess
I like the world. Skyloft is cool. Like the relationship with like the goddess or lack thereof is. I mean, the mythology they set up for this specific area.
Yes,
there's more mythology than you usually get in like a Zelda setup. It's like, oh, a random kid in a random village is chosen to fulfill their destiny, and here it's like, no, this place knows it's special. They don't really know why. They're guarding objects that like their importance has been like, it's all through oral storytelling, and a lot of it has been lost like over time. Like I think it's Zelda's father, like is the guy.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's Zelda's.
So.
Yeah. Zelda's father. So, like, he mentions when Link is chosen and a Fee like identifies themselves and about the adventure they're going to go on. Like, he's almost like moved to tears because like generations of families just guard this thing, knowing that they're supposed to, and I'm here when the thing happens. Like, and it's cool to see those sorts of moments, like a you know, it's all still kind of played pretty like silly and lighthearted, but there's I don't know. I think it's part of why I have a soft spot for Skyward Sword in like, I like all of these elements. And again, like talking about them, like in the moments, 100%. I don't know that they necessarily hit as hard as like when I speak it out loud, I go like, damn, that is pretty cool. And like, there's a little more going on than you normally get.
And just like, yeah, it was funny to see how much people wanted, or people had hoped, and of course this was for different reasons, that Breath of the Wild was one where you played as Zelda, because of the storyline in Skyward Sword. You could easily seeing her half of that story being like the way you like could play Chris or Jill in Resident Evil, like she's doing her own thing, like, and
we should like make clear, like part of like the plot setup of this is like Zelda doesn't, I mean, she's kind of like knocked off her rocker, like a tornado appears and she's like sent down to the surface, but then it becomes like really quickly clear that she has agency. She's going to these temples that you're going to as well. And part of like your really like a lot of Skyward Sword is Link, you're pretty slow.
Yeah.
If you could just move a little faster, you might be able to catch up with her, but you clearly can't. And so like that's always, there's a bit of like a princess in another castle, but as opposed to it being because she's been kidnapped and is given no power or agency over a situation, it's more like Zelda's a lady boss and like she's just taking care of her own shit, and like maybe you could just step it up, okay? And there is a world,
quest,
and there is a world where, like Cado says, you know, you could easily have like told both of those stories where like Zelda goes through a dungeon functions in two different ways, and you had two different power sets that, you know, Zelda got to go through and then Link got to go through, or some variation of something like that. But they don't take any
with
of that
her
off.
on her side of the quest, which I also always like. I just kept imagining like, oh, like what if you can control, you do puzzles together and all sorts of like wild things I've associated with that game that aren't real.
Is that a spoiler? Is that a spoiler?
No, I don't think so. That was pretty early.
Is it? Okay.
Well,
right.
I guess if you don't know who,
I think you're gonna have to go back, Mr. Producer, and I think you're gonna have to bleep out.
All right,
what you just said.
I think so, 100%.
Yeah, okay,
I think well, partially because I think this game was like came later in the Wii's cycle.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people haven't played it. I think a lot of people are going to play it. Cado, I don't know if you remember how deeply horny and sexual the villain is.
I just saw a clip with his tongue. His tongue's all over.
All I could think while playing this game is people are gonna want to fuck this dude.
They already do,
real bad.
Absolutely. There's just more.
I know, but
more and new.
It's arriving.
People. Yeah.
It's arriving in a different time.
Yeah, I'm on the Nintendo fandom wiki, and my boy's hitting a pose like hard. He's really, truly out here.
He's great.
Austin, the first time he appears in the game...
How do you pronounce this name? There's a lot of H's in here.
Yeah, I have no idea. The game doesn't help you in that regard. There's no...
there's no voice acting. Because the first game with voice acting, the first Zelda game with voice acting was Breath of the Wild. Right.
But
I think it's Girahim. That's what
that sounds right. That sounds good. Yeah.
I mean, the first time he appears, he is, caressing Link and using his tongue in very. It's just I'm not saying that there hasn't been 10 years of people getting horny for this character, but this game now drops in a different world. Like it drops in a culture that like celebrates stuff like that more than like ushering into like the dark corners of fandom, right? Where like people being publicly horny for a character is something that it happens on main.
Well, and
it didn't happen on main 10 years ago.
Right. And this also will absolutely be fans kind of reclaiming a queer coded villain, right? Like this is this is like classic evil gay guy trope for sure.
And I have not played the whole game again,
which
so
is not great.
I don't know what the problems are in that, especially because who knows how much was Nintendo's intention, where they're going for an eccentric character and then are pulling from that pool, purposely or not. I don't know, but I do think you're right. I think people are going to claim this character like regardless of like the minefields that, you know, are associated with just Nintendo's history with that, like, as, you know, subject matter in general. But it's just such a cool villain. It's very anime. In fact, I've often heard it said that like Skyward Sword is like some of the most anime that Zelda as a series has gotten, and it's frequently overlooked because Skyward Sword as a game is frequently overlooked. And so I don't know that Skyward Sword is going to get the full it's fantastic actually, but I do think it's going to get a reevaluation in the light of Breath of the Wild that even I'm doing myself playing it and find myself appreciating. And I liked it. I reviewed it for Giant Bomb. I think I gave it 4 stars, and like my general consensus was like pretty cool, but way too long and a lot of annoying things. And they fixed the annoying things, but it's still way too long.
Yeah.
But
part of that list is
interesting.
That there's a lot of revisiting of like zones.
Fast travel. There's not a great fast travel system.
There is,
you know. Well, but here's the thing. Even this is the game famously where there is an amiibo that allows you to go to the sky immediately, no matter where you are at any time. The way travel works in Skyward Sword is that the like equivalent of the Hyrule Field or the ocean in Wind Waker is Skyloft. And so when you are in the sky on your bird, you're collecting these stone tablets that open up essentially like a path in the clouds to take you back down to the surface. And what you did in the original game, and what most players will end up doing here, is that anytime you come across these bird statues that let you save the game or travel back to the sky. So anytime you encounter them, you find them every couple of minutes. It's not difficult to stumble onto one of these. You go to the sky, head to the next area, and then come down. But correct me if I'm wrong, Cado, can you fast travel to individual bird points, or is it only the beginning of the world?
I'm not actually. I hadn't actually looked into specifically what the amiibo allows. I just keep.
Well, no, I just mean in the original game. In the original game.
When you like,
I can't remember.
I think
it's just the start of the world.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. You go back to the start of the world. Yeah, for sure.
Right. And so I think I think I have this right. I think the only thing the amiibo changes is that you can head to the sky at any time, but it doesn't like necessarily introduce the ability to, hey, I remember this secret that's 3/4 through the area on the upper right-hand corner, and there's a save point over near there. Just take me to that little bird location. I don't think any of that exists in the game. I reserve the right to be wrong on that front, but I don't think it quite has that, and that still leads to a game in which you're just doing an enormous amount of getting from point A to point B. Even in the Skyloft area, where one of the mechanics of the game is you'll come across these special chests that you hit with your Sky Sword power, and then that unlocks the ability to open and find that chest in Skyloft. It's kind of like a thing to do when you need to revisit your home base. It's just a lot of like going straight with your bird, you know, like do this for a minute and a half. All right.
Yeah.
Not much to do during that minute and a half. And like that shit adds up. Like the game probably has 6 solid hours of padding that is not just aimless wandering, but is certainly aided and abetted by that. And so that part's not changed here. Quality of life is not a director's cut where they went in and said, we took out chunks of the game and reorganized it.
They did not send you that amiibo to test, presumably.
They did not, no. But again, I haven't. If it is really just go to the sky whenever you want, I can kind of do that already. I think
you have to take
myself
that
and others
step from a dungeon.
Yeah, I think, but right. Yeah, in a dungeon it would be where it would be like most useful. But most of the time in a dungeon, you're just getting in and getting out. Like you're not like revisiting dungeons unless you missed a heart piece. So I think it's less helpful than people were worried about, and myself included. But I still think it's goofy they gated it. They still put in something that is a quality of life improvement that is gated behind an amiibo, and that's bullshit. Like regardless of how often you use it, there would at least be times you would use it, or it'd be nice to know you could, and you can't unless you buy the amiibo.
Oh shit! I wish I could just swing up and buy an extra whatever, and no, you'd have to leave the dungeon to do it or whatever.
Yeah.
Right. So.
Right.
Not the end of the world, but
no, but definitely bullshit.
Yes, but definitely bullshit. All right. Well, thank you for letting me know. I probably don't need to. I'll probably still buy it and put some time into it just to.
I'd be curious. I'd be curious specifically what you thought of it. Because of
like
Breath
you said,
of the Wild.
fun game to talk about too.
Right. I think.
Also, I like Zelda games. Like, to be clear, Breath of the Wild is like the first Zelda game I've connected to, or something like that. I like the previous style of Zelda game. Fine. But
some
also,
just hit harder.
I just said some just hit harder. You know, that's just true. So, all right. Before we go to break and let you go to the movies, Patrick, because you got some research to do for us. We should talk more about you finished Boomerang X. Cado, did you also finish it?
No,
you didn't finish it. Neither of you finished it.
Cado, I'm sure did. Well, Cado.
Wait, what do you mean by finished? I guess.
Well, there's a boss.
Oh,
at the end of the game.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So when I wrote in our what do we have for tomorrow, I had the last area and the boss left, and I've pretty much cruised through this game. Like, it's definitely made me sweat profusely. Like, really edge of my seat, final life, just really having to pick and choose my shots. But I made it through. And even the final area only died once. So when I wrote, I'm going to beat this game, I was like, okay, like by all indications, I'm going to get to this last area and, you know, it'll put up a fight, but I'll get to the other side. Cado, that has proven to be untrue in the hour or so that I have spent fighting this boss. The difficulty spike at the end of this game between the final area and the boss is really not commiserate with the way the difficulty goes up over time.
Wow.
I still really like it.
Are you saying these? Are you making these sounds as someone who's beaten this boss? Or are you not there yet?
No, I beat it. I beat it.
You found it easy?
Wrap that shit up easy.
Not easy, just not as it does jump from the last room, but I don't think that drastically. But maybe we're taking different approaches, because I've for the last 3 rooms have played in slow-mo mode, where I am always time stopping. Like, I'm never not in regular speed.
Yeah, no, I think the game encourages you to more or less do that at a certain point. The thing that I have found, and I share this with Brad Shoemaker, who was the first person I thought of when I played this. Like, the first level I played, I went, oh my God.
This is a Brad Shoemaker game,
I need to tell Brad about this. Like, this is a Quake mod come to life. And I messaged him, was like, hey, I don't know if you heard of this game. You need to go play it. He has since then told me that it's like he's lost his fucking mind playing this game. So I was glad to be. We talked about in a previous podcast about being like knowing a person well enough to know. And this was just like, you need to play this game. Like, I know you're gonna. And he did flip for it, which was cool. But him and I have run into a similar issue. And I'd be curious, Cado. So let me explain where Brad and I have fallen and why we've hit a stone wall with Boomerang X. Again, if you didn't somehow missed a previous podcast, is a game in which you fight in these little combat arenas where you throw a boomerang, and that boomerang allows you to teleport to where the boomerang went. You can, if you spin up the boomerang for like a long range shot, you can slow down time by holding another button. It's a big aerial combat focused game that requires an immense amount of Twitch skills to manage like the arenas that you're in.
The sense of so I've now put, I don't know, an hour and a half into it, something like that. 70 minutes. So I'm like halfway through according to the chapter select or the achievements at least. And like that's the sense of weightlessness as you're moving from like your teleport point to teleport point, and like the sort of flow. It reminds me of something like a Spider-Man game, which I think you mentioned in the first thing.
I did, yeah.
The first conversation, where like this could just be a first-person Spider-Man game, but I think even more than those games, there is a like, all right, where am I? Okay, now I'm over here. What can I do from this perspective? Okay, now I'm over here. Okay, because when you teleport to the boomerang, you don't necessarily have a great understanding of where that boomerang is going to be in that particular moment. You're like, okay, I'm going to be up above here. And getting better at the game is partially knowing where to place the boomerang in a regular attack so that you do end up in an advantageous position. But that sense is so cool. And I just want to say, before you talk about what held you up, that you're on wood. There's like a big dinosaur type enemy in the woods that you fight sometimes. That whole stage is like top tier video game level. That whole level design. It's the first really big open space that you fight in that has like a bunch of, that's like 2 big for you to conceptualize all of where everything is at one point because of the really tall trees and the width of the size of the arena, and the fact that in the later parts of that fight or that stage sometimes there's like almost like a canopy that you can cross up beyond because of the way some of the enemies work, and it's great. So
it's really pretty. It's probably the prettiest level in the game, and actually,
so far at least,
I frequently think back to that stage because a lot of the game is caves and fighting in these caves, and the caves are fine, but that specific nothing hits the same high as that specific level. And all I can think of is like, oh, like what if like there was one set in the winter, or the rain, like you know what I mean, like different, like there are different settings they could put the same, this very same game and get a lot out of it. So
anyway,
I'm sure you've encountered this because this is the direction the game pushes you in mechanically. Is that when you throw this boomerang, you can charge it up, you can slow down all at the same time, so you can line up your next shot, which is not only lining up a shot that hopefully hits an enemy, but will also take you in the direction of where you want to plan your next move. And also, even if you miss that shot, if you run into an enemy while teleporting, you will still take them out. And so you kind of set yourself up in multiple ways for potential success. And so a lot of what you end up doing in the game, as Cado illustrated about being in slow motion time, basically the entire time, is throwing, stopping, and like you're kind of just like teleporting across the arena. And the times when you're releasing that and not being in slow motion is I'm in between rounds, I'm gonna quickly try and charge up one of my shields on these little power spots, or I want to try and get 3 enemies to group themselves together, so I'm gonna try and kite them to me at this area, line them up, shoot them, and then shoot through them. Anyway, that like creates a situation where you get very used to that style of play. And in the final level before the boss, and the boss in particular, really punishes you for not for not doing that anymore. Like you need to stop doing that all the time, because you're going to throw yourself into AoE effects. You are going to throw yourself into the environmental walls, and all that's going to damage you. And what you need to start doing more often is throwing it, grabbing it back with the right click of your mouse, and then allowing yourself a beat to think about, what do I actually want to do next, instead of relying on always pushing forward. Because if you just keep pushing forward, the momentum is such that you're not always going to be able to stop yourself. By the time you catch that boomerang, you will have run into an object that hurts you. And what I have found is that it's very hard to break that habit. And I don't think the way the levels are designed set you up to fully learn that lesson, except the hard way. Whereas like, suddenly I'm in a level where, that thing that was like super successful all along, like actually like you should stop doing that. And then in the boss, it goes, well, not only should you stop doing that, but all the walls are dangerous. And they're not like very visual walls. They're just kind of like storms. You don't actually know what's going to hurt you. And so like I don't want to spoil too much about the boss, but like part of the setup of it is there are red spots on this boss that you attack, and those turn into crystals that are also darts. And those darts immediately turn around and start attacking you. Yeah. So the weak points that you're hitting then become enemies that you need to deal with. And yes, shooting through them with your teleport is the most useful way to take them out, because they are tiny, and like your character's body is bigger than shooting the boomerang and hoping that you take them out. But I have just found that's the part that I'm struggling with, Cado, is breaking a habit that the game guided me towards, rewarded me for, and then all of a sudden seems to sort of want to take away in a way that, had there been a little bit more, like a third more of the game that like built up to that moment. I'm not really frustrated. I don't think it's not like ruining the game for me. I just find it to be a game that is otherwise so precise and elegant in its introduction to mechanics and level design and momentum. This feels a little clunky in a way that it just kind of stinks. It's like everything else has been perfect up until this moment. It assumes
that you've learned this lesson at some point, but they haven't forced you to actually learn that lesson at any point.
Correct.
And they try a little bit, and then they I don't know. Do we want to go
where you stop that one or a different?
I don't think it's a game. I mean, if you don't want to, if you don't, I mean,
let's talk about it again. Well,
let's honestly play a little bit more. We can revisit this before we close the book today or tomorrow. But that's where I'm at with it. Where it's just a bit of a sour note on a game that otherwise I think is impeccably designed. And
I can ask a mechanics question.
Sure.
Actually, when should I be using the pierce ability that you start,
like the sniper rifle?
Yeah, is it just like really far away shots that I don't want to.
There are enemies. Have you encountered the enemies that are kind of like the hulking, like the little like trolls that are like just stand still on things and enemies spawn out the back?
Yeah.
So if you shoot them, all the enemies many of the enemies have those red spots.
Yeah,
you need to shoot them. That thing will shoot through a body. So you can be across the arena.
Did not understand it shot through bodies.
See one of those and just line it up and get them.
There's another
enemy.
Yeah, I was gonna say I thought that happened in that first one but it might be the second room after you get the pierce. There are enemies that will teleport if you get too close.
Mm-hmm. I fought those guys.
Like in.
Oh wait, no. See, I didn't read that as getting too close. I read that's interesting.
Yes,
I read those as they'll teleport from an attack, but then if you get the next attack in on them soon enough,
it's like
they don't have.
It like depends on if they're doing their spell. Is what
right? Well, it's like it seems like it charges up immediately after a teleport, and they don't have it ready right away. I didn't realize that it was a proximity thing. Also,
yeah. If you get too close and they have it ready to go, they will just teleport. So that's part of it was also like making that easier.
That makes sense. All right, well, we should take a break. Patrick, you should go watch The Forever Purge, our next movie podcast.
Somebody in the Discord said no sudden movies.
You can't tie it to a specific thing.
I know. We can't. It's just that was just funny to me.
What was the really good name we came up with? Did we say it on a microphone? Did that happen somewhere else?
The really good one or the bad one? I had a bad one that was like, we'll get there.
We'll get there was the name of it?
We'll get there was the name of the...
Yeah,
No,
that wasn't it.
There was a really good one.
Yeah.
What was the one I'm thinking of? You know,
I don't
right?
know.
I want to say it was another one tied to a... no, we were taught we couldn't use it because literally the thing had just been named that.
No Sudden Move would be just a good name of a podcast.
Yeah,
so,
I think so.
We did the same joke twice.
Yes.
It's like twice now. Each day we've been like, that'd be a good podcast name.
Well, Austin wasn't there. So I
wasn't there, so how could I have...
trying to bring it back.
Anyway, is that in the feed today? Is that or is that yesterday? Did that go out?
Yeah,
No Sudden Moves.
No Sudden Moves is in the feed. Was in the feed yesterday or 2 days ago from people listening to this. And Patrick's interview with Alex. Sorry, I forgot Alex's last name.
Anyel.
Alex Anyel.
Alex Anyel, who's the author of Itchy Tasty, An Unofficial History of Resident Evil.
Oh, nice.
Was at one point
Itchy Tasty.
Itchy Tasty.
Yeah, see, Rob gets the reference. Was at one point one of the preeminent collectors of Resident Evil. Every edition of a game had a collection with 300 copies of Resident Evil, trying to get all the different SKUs across the world. Wrote a cool book about where they interview Shinji Mikami and Hideki Kamiya and a lot of other folks that were involved in the creation of that series over the last 20 plus years. It's a really fun read if you are familiar with playing the series, but don't know little factoids like the fact that the game difficulty was tuned for being released in places like North America because in Japan rentals were banned, but they weren't banned over here. So they made the game harder so that as a result of the fact that people were going to be renting it and they wanted them to encourage people to buy it so they would have it longer because it took longer to beat, which is just an interesting way the market interacts with game design, which, as we go through the 900th multiverse discussion of difficulty in video games, it's just interesting to see a bit like that where it is not always just the case that a game is tuned because a designer wills it. It is sometimes influenced because, in a part of the world those fuckers can just go to Blockbuster and rent it.
Not anymore, though.
No. Well,
we've eliminated the scourge of rental and borrowing.
And there was actually like a common complaint amongst the Japanese. What, rentals?
Yeah, Netflix is opening a wing or some shit. I heard about this the other day.
What?
Yeah, video game
rentals.
Yeah, Netflix's next frontier is video game. Well, is it rentals though? Is it like
streaming?
Streaming.
How do we miss this? I missed this. Why Netflix is getting into video games?
They're real iffy on details right now.
Yeah,
it's unclear. It's like
on what is actually happening.
Right? Are you going to be able to stream? You know, they have a Resident Evil movie. I mean, it would make sense where like
Quibi
they have the
Trust and making choose your own adventure movies now all the time.
Right.
Well, they have. They have The Witcher. They have a Resident Evil movie. They just funded a Resident Evil CG anime. It would make some sense. Like, hey, do you want to play Resident Evil? That makes more sense to me.
Hey, you finished Castlevania. Would you like to play Castlevania?
Right.
Get in the game, Alucard.
Well, I've seen some people say, well, this seems, and I guess it depends on the direction that they go, but if what they're trying to do is we're gonna make a Strange Things video game, that seems ill-advised and a Stadia-like catastrophe in which it takes 3 to 4 years to build that stuff. But if they are going to, I don't know, license the Stadia tech, which is what Google wants companies to do anyway, or any other number of cloud services, and just hook in with the partners that they're working with, especially as they make this pivot to anime and video games, like this is like a huge part of the next like 5 years of Netflix are like those markets. Shit, that makes it. I could see myself being like, yeah, sure. Is that just part of my sub? I could just like play Resident Evil 4 for an hour after watching. Like I could see myself doing that. Sure, why not? Anyway, that interview with Alex and Yal is on the Waypoint Plus feed. As part of our re-examination of Resident Evil.
Cool. Well, you go watch Forever Purge. I'll hold my other names I've written down for what I would have called that movie for our actual conversation.
Oh, wow. Okay. All right. Can you give us a hint?
Make a run for the border?
No. I can't even give a hint because I think it'll spoil my read of the film.
Yep.
Right.
So all right. Don't worry about it.
I feel like you even saying that gives me a hint.
Plus. Yeah. The Forever Purge Back to Brunch is one of the ones that
yeah. I knew if I tempted you would.
If you tempted me, I would go. Yeah, that's all. I'll save the other ones here.
All right. Well, we will reconvene.
Yes. So we will also take a break here. And we will reconvene to hear about Company of Heroes 3 from Rob, which I'm very excited about, or very excited to hear about, I guess. Until then, be right back. Rob.
Awesome.
I didn't expect this week that we would get anything like a new entry announced and made playable in some form of a favorite RTS franchise, and yet here we are. Company of Heroes 3 announced. Company of Heroes is it legendary at this point as an RTS, or is it just is it a critical favorite? Is it
definitely a critical
darling
favorite? I don't think anything has achieved really like StarCraft levels of
no. I wouldn't even put it in that. Yeah. I mean, I think that Company of Heroes had great multiplayer.
Yeah,
but I don't know that it had there was no spectator share. There was no huge.
No, I mean, it was a major hit. In its day. And I think part of that was the fact that Company of Heroes 1, we talked a little bit about this on the show last time, was an RTS that pitched itself as, hey, we don't look like other RTSs. We look like like Call of Duty. Like that's how good the models and graphics are. And so they sold themselves on spectacle. And I think that first game did very, very well. And then the second...
It was distinct in terms of feel because of the scale of conflict and the focus on tactical infantry engagements.
Yeah, intimate,
cover.
I think, is the way you describe
is a great
that.
way of
Because if you think about a lot of its predecessors, so like things like Age of Empires or even like Command and Conquer, it's reductive to say you could just like send huge armies at each other and like fire and forget. Like, totally, you still had to do micro. You still had to like, yeah. But at the same time, like, part of those games were definitely about like, you know, quantity had a quality all its own. That was part of the name of those games. And Company of Heroes was very much like, no, where you position an infantry squad like matters down to like being a few feet off. That will matter. Flanking penalties kick in based on the exact angle units are taking incoming fire. And so you get a lot of that stuff. It borrowed from, you know, you'd say borrowed from war games in some ways, where like tanks were super vulnerable if you got around to their rear armor. So like the key to taking them out was getting around behind them. And so that was, and I think that's a good place to start though, because you mentioned saying Company of Heroes 1 had great multiplayer, and I agree. Yeah. A lot of people also felt it had a great campaign. Now, I never much cared for it because it was really, in my view, kind of bog standard stuff, right? It was a long campaign. It was well produced. They'd lavished a lot of care on cinematics and like bespoke scenario scripting, but it wasn't like super engaging if you liked RTS games, right? Like if you wanted to go play an RTS, the campaign was doing something different, where it was like kind of just setting up German positions for you to knock down and play with the various like, you know, toys that the game gave you. And then the multiplayer game was really nothing like single player. The multiplayer game was kind of I think it typified some of the things that people find stressful about RTS games. This is a game where everything is about capturing control points on the map to generate resources, and like it's a rate-based economy. But the thing is,
which is to say, for people who've never played the series and who maybe have played other RTSs, you're not sending out workers to go get lumber or to go get magic crystals that will power your economy. Like, that's not. Instead, you're sending out your infantry units to go capture control points, as if you're playing an FPS game that is like, you know, Capture or King of the Hill or something like that, where there's different zones, and that is what gives you oil. That's what gives you what are the there's like three
fuel, ammo, and manpower.
And manpower, right? Yeah. Which all like, you need fuel for vehicles, you need manpower for you know, various infantry units, stuff like that. Yeah. So, and also you do still have a base, and you are still constructing units, and you are still going through a tech tree of a sort. But it's such a different vibe, and I think you're right that it zeroed in on a lot of what makes some of those. Is this the worst? Am I making the right decision? If you don't know a map really well or know the rhythm of this specific game, I remember starting Company of Heroes and feeling like the stupidest person alive every game until I really got it, you know?
Yeah, and I think there's things where, especially because the unit count is fairly low, you really can't be everywhere, and so you have to just let parts of the map go. Like, you'll be notified, hey, the enemy is taking one of our positions, and you got to immediately know, like, can I intervene there? Do I even want to? Because if they're there, I can go somewhere else. And so, like, Company of Heroes felt like a really, like, challenging whack-a-mole in some ways, where it was like you're playing whack-a-mole with, like, tanks and infantry and such. And it could be really hectic, and also really, really good. Like, when I was at my best in multiplayer, it was like you get a little bit of a high off of like winning a match like that, because you were so focused in for the duration of the match. But it also meant that, you know, if you just wanted to play around with World War II shit, you know, it was kind of like a lot of RTSs, way less accessible, I think, than the campaign. But the campaign, you know, they were kind of rote scenarios, and once you finished it, you were done. Company of Heroes 3 is doing something really different with that split between single player and multiplayer. The big thing that they're doing is that the campaign is now like a dynamic campaign. It has a strategy layer. And
it looks a lot like a Total War map to me.
Yep.
In terms of there being a vast map. So this is what? It's North Africa and Italy?
Yep.
Is that those are the areas? It's a World War II game. It's a World War II game, if you didn't know. I guess we didn't say that out loud. And yeah, are you tell me, you've played this now, but like my first blush is like, oh, this is Total War.
Yeah, so interestingly enough, Relic.
Also, this is early access. You're playing an early access version.
Yeah. And now pretty much I think anyone can.
Right. Yeah, I think that's true.
Which is also interesting. It's like they're now fully embracing being part of like the Sega strategy division. And so they're pretty frank about like talking to Creative Assembly about strategic mode. And they're very frank about talking to I think we had a couple developers on Three Moves Ahead this week. So you go listen to that, threemovesahead.net. But I think they talked about using some of the playtesters that Amplitude have really liked working with.
This whole model is the Amplitude model,
yes.
Right? When I looked at that's what's blowing my mind a little bit about this, and thinking about Sega as the premier Western strategy publisher at this point which is a weird thing to think about. It's what you just said. This looks like a Total War game in terms of its campaign, and the way that they talked about the way they are doing their early access stuff, which is not through. It's not. I mean, is it even? It's not through Steam directly. You can't go to the Steam page and just hit download. You have to go and link your Relic account, which I don't know my Relic account stuff, but like to their fan whatever page. And then on that page is a lot of language that reminded me so much of what Amplitude has done or did with Endless Space 2. And I want to say maybe they also did it back with Endless Legend.
Well, they're doing it with Humankind. Humankind is at
they're doing it with
million
Humankind now.
Early access windows.
Okay. Yes. I guess they use it. Okay, it's called Games Together was the Amplitude model, and I guess I don't know if that's also specifically what is being used for Company of Heroes.
They've got a cutesy branding on it when you launch it. It's co-development.
Okay, so it's basically the same thing. That's basic. That's funny. That's cute. COH development, co-development. Yeah. Okay. But the basic thing being this will. The way Amplitude has always talked about this, in my experience, has been about like you get a higher level of engagement from this style of early access player because they've gone through the extra steps of signing up on a different website. They didn't just hit download on Steam. They are like on a website that has its own built-in forms and its own built-in tools for suggestions that tracks individual suggestions and different ideas. And like that's the sort of pre-alpha setup that it's this looks identical to the Game Together page. If I just like send a quick screenshot to you both, you'll see that this is the gray frame around the window, with the same exact like drop down thing and the gift icon in the top right. And it's the same platform, it just has a different name. That's so fascinating to me. God.
So And the thing is, like, I am kind of curious how this all pans out. I honestly think Humankind, which is coming out next month, is going to be kind of a test for this, because this feels like the most ambitious they've been with it. And I've kind of wondered, like, I feel like the hype for that thing built and crested and kind of tapered well before this thing is rolling out of the garage. So I'm kind of curious, like, what the proof will be in that particular pudding. But it seems like Relic are not, like, they are also, this is not some sort of dog and pony show where it's like, we're going to let you weigh in, and then the game is substantially, like, complete. Even though this game looks pretty far along, they are not targeting release date until, like, about a year or more away. So we're talking about, like, fall 2022. And
which is plenty of time to go in there and make some pretty big changes, so long as that core foundation is in place right now.
Yeah, and like, And again, through his.net, in our interview, they've already they talked frankly about like things that I played and things that I think are still in the like pre-alpha that people can play this week are already kind of marked for death.
Right.
So like, I'll give you an example in a second because it'll make sense in context. But like, they've already gotten feedback where it's like, woof, players are not digging this, and so like parts of it are going to be like overhauled. So we're going to have like a year of these sort of early access stages that we go through. And right now what's available is the single player campaign. So let's talk about what that is. You said it looks like Total War. And that's true like cosmetically. You do not have the management layer of a Total War. Like it's not like, which makes sense. You're commanding like the Western allies in the Italian campaign, but it's not like you're running America or the Commonwealth and like, what am I going to build? Where am I going to invest resources and creating like research?
Right, sure.
But what you have, and I think this is kind of smart, they've kind of got the two structures of the game echoing each other. So the strategic map in the bit you can play, it's right after like the Allies have captured Naples and are driving toward Monte Cassino, which just became this like horrible stalemate for like 6 months in the Italian campaign. And first, because it's amphibious, it's an amphibious invasion. Everything's sort of got a lifeline back to the home countries. You place orders for stuff to be delivered to your port, but the biggest stuff is like on a shipping delay. Like if you need to be like, I need more tanks, I'm ordering up another armored company. They're like, you're going to have to let 3 turns go by before those tanks show up. So I hope you don't need them like immediately because they're just not going to get here.
Right.
But the way you collect, increase your sort of resource income rate on the strategic layer is the same way you do it in the RTS layer. Like different towns on this strategic map of Italy, one will be marked with like it has ammo, one has gas. Does it make any real sense? Absolutely not. It's not.
But it also makes the most sense in the world in terms of zooming out and extending the gameplay meta. It already didn't make sense, Rob. It already didn't make sense on the tactical layer that I was getting a radio and that was increasing, or like a radio station that was increasing my manpower, or that I captured. Like
I built a box on a fuel point. Now I get more fuel.
Now I get more fuel. That's not how it ever worked. So that sort of metaphor for warfare and resource control and supply lines was always abstracted in a fun way. So yeah, why not zoom it out a little bit and do it where if I take over this southern Italian town, I get more bullets.
And the other thing is the fog of war is pretty dense on this. And so like you can see the whole map, but you have no idea like where the Germans actually are. Like, they're out there somewhere, but like as you expand your beachhead and you start entering different valleys, like you kind of have to guess at what you think you might be running into. And your primary tool for this are the companies themselves. Company of Heroes, the company is sort of your base level unit, and they are basically what pass for like, I guess the way I put it is they're like your character class. So there are armies, and then there are companies. So like there is an American army, and that's kind of your baseline faction stuff. And then the company you choose has special units and special abilities that are unique to that company. So it like draws from a common pool of army shit, and then it has its own specializations and special units. In this campaign, like, the Brits are bringing all the heavy shit. The Commonwealth, and I shouldn't say Brits because they're very clear. This is a Commonwealth force, and indeed, like the Italian campaign, maybe more than anywhere else, everyone showed up. Free French Algerian troops, like were part of that campaign. Like Australian, New Zealand armored units were key to it. And one of the units that I used pretty extensively was an Indian artillery company, where you had like lots of heavy artillery, that you can just use to drop massive AoE attacks. It's
Sounds
like an
great.
orbital bombardment, basically. Like just turn this entire section of the map inside out. And then the unique infantry you had were like Gurkhas, who are like elite Nepalese infantry. And so they would sort of do really fast dash in and mop up after those barrages. And so the Brits had like basically the army and the artillery, the Commonwealth, and then the U.S. had special forces and like paratroopers.
I would say airborne, right?
Yeah.
Like any of that style of when I think about past Company of Hero games, I think a lot about the airborne company in COH. I think that was 1, but they're probably in 2 too, where you had a combination of both being able to just paratroop in and immediately kind of reinforce an area of the map, or the opposite, which was like calling in a bomber to just devastate an enemy encampment before you push in with your land troops.
Yeah.
Or to like finish knocking out or to knock out an incoming or weaken up an incoming push from the enemy. So yeah, so is it or how many companies are playable at this point across
4?
Okay.
So it's special
2 and
forces,
2, basically.
Yeah, it's the
Or is
ones
it
I'm
4?
named.
Okay. Yeah.
Gotcha. But now on the campaign layer, you can also further customize them, where they will have like special abilities and buffs that are activated. And so as they gain experience, you can sort of pour more like resources into them to sort of upgrade them. So a veteran company is way stronger than one that's like sort of fresh off the transports. The other thing is, as you advance into enemy territory, the longer you go without sort of capturing the hub in that territory, your units are out of supply. They steadily lose strength in hostile territory until they basically flip the territory in their favor. And where that comes in is basically like relative strength is like it's handicapping the difficulty of the battle you fight. And so if you go in with full strength and the enemy is at like reduced strength, like they will have, so it's like a domination mode in Battlefield. This is generally what Company of Heroes multiplayer has been, where you're trying to like reduce their tickets by like commanding more like key locations, victory locations. And so if you have like the stronger force, you have more tickets. You have basically a greater margin for error, and the enemy has fewer. Like they are closer to just being like wiped out on the RTS match than you are. If you are like on your last legs, then you kind of start from a position of like, well, I really kind of have to put up a flawless defense here. And so that's kind of a nifty way that they've solved this. And I think this is this I think has been brought over from a similar gesture Relic made in this direction with Company of Heroes 2, the Ardan Assault campaign, which didn't have a proper strategic layer, but did have sort of a dynamic, like pick your next battle, and based on your choices, the shape of those battles would change pretty considerably. So the strategic layer like matters on that level, and like so if you're trying to do an end run around German lines and going through like the Italian countryside, your forces are like kind of steadily getting whittled down just as they advance through these like long empty valleys trying to capture these key hubs. And then eventually as you push further and further in, your odds of running into German forces increase. So you go from sort of mopping up garrison details to facing down like actual like panzer divisions. And yeah, the way these two things tie together, it's kind of twofold. You get special missions that can set up like scripted missions. So you'll get one where it's like the Italian partisans need your help, and you got to go like rescue a band of Italian partisans. And if you do a good enough job, the partisans will, I think you might get some bonuses, but either way, if you save the partisans, as long as you hold their base and doesn't get like retaken by the Germans, you will be able to send partisan missions out behind enemy lines. And so you can be like, this turn, I want the partisans to shadow this enemy unit and just give me like clear the fog of war around this enemy unit so I can keep tabs on it. Or I want you to freeze this enemy unit and lock it down using like harassment tactics. And so that's where like stuff like that comes in. Ditto, like if you capture airfields, you can spend money to pack those airfields full of like recon planes or fighter bombers, or as you sort of alluded to, Austin, carpet bombing like squadrons that you can use to either do airstrikes like on the strategic map and just like do like straight point damage, or you can be there in the mission and like based on what is available in theater, suddenly you'll have a little like cooldown button, a hotbar button that's like, hey, you want to just send the Liberator Squadron over and like hammer these guys? And it's like, yes, I do.
Yes, I do. Right. That's really cool. So I guess that was my next question was like, how much is the, I hadn't thought about it, but you said earlier, if you want more tanks, you have to put in the call to base, or to HQ, whether there'll be a 3-turn delay. But I realized like, wait, that's not where tanks come from in Company of Heroes. Tanks come from my motor pool or whatever when I get enough fuel on the map. But like, am I rolling? When you say I have more tanks, does that mean I'm rolling into a map with those tanks already? What's that mean? Talk to me about it.
No, so I mean, like summoning a new tank company will require like a 3-day delay. On the map, you'll be bringing your tanks in from the motor pool, like normal.
Okay, but I have a unit on the strategic layer, on the theater layer. I have a tank.
Yes,
I have a tank company. I move that tank company into a small Italian town that currently is occupied by German infantry.
Yeah.
What does the game at that point zoom in and say,
you're going to an RTS battle?
I'm going, and at the start of that, am I now playing that as a tank company with all of the tank? So I'm playing, in fact, all of the different companies in this, or multiple different companies in this game, versus the traditional, I've chosen this is the company. Right. Yeah. I see what you're saying. Okay.
And
so that means you have all your abilities that the tank company would have. You have that tech tree. You have those extra vehicles and special units for that battle because that's who's initiated the fight.
Right. And there's something I need to stage because it occurs to me, I didn't try this out, but I'm curious how it would go. So if friendly units are in the vicinity of the combat, they can contribute bonuses. Yeah. I don't know what happens if you engage, like if you have your Commonwealth tanks and Commonwealth artillery engaged together. Do I get both? I don't think I do. I think you get bonuses maybe from one. But this is where things get muddy. They also have these things that were like detachments that are sub-company special units that exist on the strategic layer, but if they get in a fight, an RTS battle doesn't happen. They can fight.
It just resolves the way like a war game fight would, where you're just moving those pieces at the tactical layer. Or at the strategic layer, and it resolves.
Yeah.
It does like,
And apparently, that's nobody likes that.
Because they want to zoom in all the time.
No, it's more, in the process of playing it, they felt fiddly. Okay. And the way they interacted with the actual RTS layer wasn't like super intuitive. Like sometimes I was like, shouldn't I have gotten a bonus from this detachment being nearby? And maybe it's just too far away or something, but they just felt very inconsistent in what they're actually accomplishing. Right, and a lot of the way they existed on the map was like the Germans scatter infantry detachments all around the map. And so you'll just be trying to like walk around a corner, like go into the next valley or like cross a bridge. And you will just get like straight damage on the strategic layer because you got ambushed by like a German partisan or a German like light infantry detachment that you don't fight an RTS battle. You just absorb damage. And then you're, kind of just left to brush these guys aside with like artillery, barrages. Your companies can engage them and auto calculates like how much damage you'll take versus how much damage they will take. Right. And so it's kind of like auto-resolving in Total War. Detachments can only auto-resolve, whereas companies, when they engage, like fight a proper RTS battle. And so that's kind of how that fits together. And so the campaign structure has this mix of like scripted missions that pop up, and then also like just RTS battles that pop up when, your armored company runs into a German armored company. Now you have a very familiar Company of Heroes scenario. These two companies are going to go at it on an RTS map.
Right.
And that's how it's going to go. And that is the part of the game they have not really messed with that much. That's pretty like familiar stuff. The difference being they're trying to make it so that you don't have to like be good at Company of Heroes to like enjoy this.
Right.
Which sounds arch, but it's like Company of Heroes multiplayer is such a demanding, like, full body experience in some ways. Like,
oh yeah, big time.
Yeah,
you are not over exaggerating that. There's like I'm using all of my brain. I'm using all of my function is being used by this, which is part of the joy of it. I've said this before, but one of the things I get out of video games is like my brain can't do anything else but the video game when I'm playing one that I really like and it really activates. And Company of Heroes is like doing laps in your brain, which I like, quite a bit.
But sometimes you do just want to be like, I just want to play around with like tactics, and I want to sort of lean back. For me, there's kind of lean back and lean forward games, right?
Right.
And Company of Heroes multiplayer is kind of a lean forward, like your body increasingly just separates from the chair as you like will yourself closer to the
until you're just kind of in a squat, standing above your desk. Yeah.
Whereas, like, you know, if you're playing when things are well in hand in XCOM, you might be leaning back.
We lean back a lot in the back half of that campaign. 100%.
Enjoying a beverage, feet up.
Yeah, absolutely. You're right.
So they're kind of...
This is lean all the way forward.
Yeah, they're kind of making it possible for you to choose your own level of involvement.
I see.
And it's not like... The thing they're letting you do is they've introduced like a Paradox game, this sort of tactical pause. You just hit pause, the action stops, you can issue orders.
Wait, in combat?
Yeah.
Wow, that's
like
huge.
I don't think that will exist. I don't think it could exist in multiplayer.
Exist in No. But I love that it exists in single player.
Yeah.
Did they do that in Did Dawn of War 2 or 3 have a tactical pause?
Oh God, this is that.
What did I play that? You know what
games.
You know what I'm thinking of is there was that game that was sort of like inspired by the original Syndicate. That was like a cyberpunk tactics game.
Yeah. We talked about it on
was that Three Moves Ahead. We're at 3moveshead.net.
Satellite Rain had
a tactical pause, right? Yeah. Or it didn't have a tactical pause. It had a character who had an ability that was doing a tactical pause. it was buried in a specific member of your squad who could do it. I remember this now, but I remember thinking, this is good. I like playing a tactics game that has a tactical pause, and I think that I might like that addition. Makes me think I could play more of Company of Heroes 3 than I otherwise would if it lives through the early access alpha stuff, you know?
Yeah.
I can't imagine they take it out.
No, and I think I'm not one of these like RTS doomers. I think it's a genre that ebbs and flows, right?
Yeah.
I think though that Relic have identified something key, which is that there's a lot of cool things in a lot of RTS games that are only accessible to people who achieve a relatively high level of skill because you just do not have the bandwidth to realize like this is the moment to use that ability. This is the moment to use that power. And if you don't get comfortable with that stuff, you don't even fully like grok how it interacts with the game. Like you don't even fully understand like game balance until you've seen like what happens when two units are able to like use their whole kit against each other. That's even, I think, more true in Company of Heroes, where like this is a game where you will be hand sighting artillery pieces. You know, a machine gun team has a field of fire that you need to carefully like plot out. Like, where do I think the enemy is coming from? If you get that wrong, you're going to watch them get flanked and wrecked. If you get it right, you're going to watch them just chew the enemy up. And the game has a million decisions like that at high speed.
Yeah.
And
and the thing that's interesting about it is Company of Heroes, you're making all those decisions at once in terms of the setup, And that setup can also include aggressive setup where you go, okay, I'm going to move both this infantry unit with a flamethrower and also this grenadier unit forward to try to put pressure on this area. But there's a lot of lean forward, and then I guess you never get to sit back. But part of the joy of playing Company of Heroes for me is setting up the machine gun nest, setting up the correct field of fire, and then just seeing it absolutely obliterate a group of enemies who happen to need to retreat past it or something like that. And so the tactical pause version of this makes so much sense to me because it starts to feel like setting up a really good Overwatch turn in XCOM or something.
Yeah.
Where you're like, all right, motherfuckers, get ready. Like, I'm going to get everything plotted out in the right way, and then I'm going to hit go. And then all of this, like, if Company of Heroes already feels turn-based in some way because of the way I think the elemental way the game works with, it's not a tile-based game, but the cover positions are discrete in that way. The ways in which there are hard counters. I mean, RTS games have hard counters all over the place, but it's always had that feeling to me in a way that something like Warcraft or StarCraft or whatever else, Total Annihilation or any other RTS that I've put time into, Age of Empires. Age of Empires does not feel like I've set up you do a lot of base building in Age of Empires, but it's not the same thing as like putting a feeling that the feeling you do in a game of like Warhammer 40K, where I've put a unit on the board and I know that it will come into play when when the moment strikes, it will activate in the right way. And that's interesting. This is like opening. You can hear me galaxy braining my hopes for Company of Heroes 3 as I start thinking about it as a game that I can hit pause in, which is not a thing I've thought about. And obviously that won't mean that I'll be any good at multiplayer ever again because I just don't have those skills anymore. But I did not think I would be the person for a Company of Heroes 3 campaign, and suddenly I actually think I might be.
Yeah, I mean, I was trying to refresh myself on the arc of Relic in some ways in the last couple weeks.
Sure.
And so I went back and I played Co 1, Co 2. This is very consistent with those. I think Co 2 is not as well liked, but I think so much of that is down to, I think tactically the games are very similar. I still think the RTS stuff is very similar. It is so... Company of Heroes 2, when you fire it up, it is so interested and fixated on selling you cosmetics and shit. Like it is full of like unlockables and
it's that era, right?
Yeah. And the whole game was kind of set up around that notion of like, you're going to fire up Company of Heroes and you're going to play and you're going to get a new like skin for your, Firefly Sherman or something like that. It was full of stuff like that.
Right.
And to the point where like the game's interface on a base level will be messy forever because so much real estate is dedicated to like, hey, here's what you can buy. Which button do you want that will be your portal to a different Company of Heroes experience? By the way, you can buy stuff. And Company of Heroes 1 really was not like that. And I think this sort of trend reached its peak with Dawn of War 3, which like basically crashed on takeoff and ended that franchise. I think there were some cool ideas there. But when you go back to that, it is so clear that they built this like they built a mall for Dawn of War, right? They were like, you're gonna want to tweak your hero units, and we got unlockables galore. So it'll be really sticky. There's going to be a lot of slow progression systems, and people will love that. And people hated it.
Yeah.
I feel like this is a lot more in tune with what I think reasonably people will be looking for from an RTS, which I think the where Relic lost their way a little bit was, and I get why they did this. There was this window where you would look across the way at what was happening with like League of Legends or something.
Yeah.
And you would think people just love grinding and they love playing the same thing again and again and getting a cosmetic or unlocking a new hero or stuff like that. That's what people like. We should introduce that into RTSs. Except RTS players, like, despite the common origin, the audiences like really did diverge.
Yeah.
Nobody wanted RTS that operates that way. But this feels a lot more in tune with like, well, what might an RTS player want? Well, it's been proven pretty substantially that, like, why is Total War so successful? Because people love battles, but they love those battles to have a context. And introducing that to Company of Heroes is really smart. And if you build a good campaign that can go a lot of different ways, you could create one that people are like, great, I finished one run, conquering Italy and toppling the fascists. Now I'm going to do it again, but a different way.
Right.
Because there are like little like choice moments and inflection moments like built into this campaign. So I'm really curious how this all unfolds, but I think the instinct of like, how do we make it so that people can play high level of Company of Heroes, make those high level decisions without being high level players?
Yeah.
That seems like a really critical insight for
great.
like where the connection between RTS design and its audience is often broken down.
This is the thing of like, there are so many people who I think could connect to this game and have a great time with it because they love chess, because they love tactical, tactical war games or tactical board games or tactical RPGs, right? There are XCOM people who I think could really get a lot out of Company of Heroes if the onboarding was good enough. And again, the notion of the tactical pause lets them look at the whole map and make decisions the way they would in a slower game. The fact that that's opening up, I mean, obviously we're in the middle of a bunch of difficulty discourse, but I think that like this is a really interesting, quick illustration of the ways in which the inclusion of something like that opens up the joys of the game to a bunch of new people. So yeah, I hope it works out for them. I will probably not touch this in this early access stage. I will wait until it's done, because otherwise I will play it for 4 hours in early access and then never touch it again. So thank you for doing the deep dive. And are you do you see yourself like sticking with it over the next little bit, or like just checking in now and then?
No, I think I'm with you. Like it's a really generous slice of the game.
Right.
I played it. I think it's good. I don't think I think the things that are clunky at this stage make it a far less fun game than it will be. And like, I don't think my thirst is so intense that I'm like, I'm going to play this really slow version of this game that I think is shaping up really nicely. But I'm going to put up with these potential crashes and like this long slog just again and again. I am trying to put it on a shelf. I'll check out the next build for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, why not?
But yeah, but I think it's worth checking out if you've just been sort of looking for if you feel that Company of Heroes nostalgia.
It's been almost a
this
decade,
only scratches
right?
it. It launched me into a retro.
Right,
I've been revisiting all of them now.
Right. Totally. I would say the last one was 2013, so it's been a minute, which is truly wild to think about, honestly. In my approximation. We're gonna take a quick dip in the question bucket before we wrap up. How do you feel about that? Okay.
I've been doing a bad job marking what questions I've answered. So
all right. Well, if I ask one, you'll have to. Did you answer this one about pasta rankings? All right. Pasta passionate and the Pancisco Peria writes, what are your personal pasta power rankings? Spaghetti is not an option, too basic. And the stuffed boys, ravioli, tortellini, must be given specific flavors if they are to be ranked. Also, we can all assume that bucatini, spaghetti's overhyped fail son, is at the bottom of everyone's list.
Wow.
Just out the gate.
Rude.
Yeah, extremely rude. I love fusilli. Fusilli is my number one. I know that's like a childish thing because it's the swirly one. It's the little corkscrew pasta.
That's a good one though.
But I love it. but I love it.
So got good spaces for
It
sauce to hit. Yeah,
it holds the sauce in such a good way. That's my number one. I have to sit with number two. I think number two might be penne. I really like penne. As again, like I think that the form holds a different type of sauce really well, and it coats really nicely. It's more of a coating pasta than a sauce holding pasta. Do you know what I mean? So, a lighter sauce, though I just kind of want the whole thing to be sort of tossed in it more than covered in it. I'm a penne person.
Nice.
How about you, Cado? What do you think?
I've got an answer that I think is technically
fine. Go for it.
Lasagna.
Yeah. Lasagna is up there. You got it. I get what you're saying. Yeah. Because is lasagna a type? Yes. I mean, the answer is yes.
Yeah. There's pasta.
The rules didn't say shit about pasta.
Yeah.
Or about lasagna. So
it's pasta. It's pasta. There's pasta in there.
The thing is, it's that form for lasagna is perfect. The lasagna.
The lasagna form. Yeah. It's the only way you can make lasagna pasta. But
yeah, I don't know that I would use it in any other. I don't know that it sheets up. It's just sheets of pasta.
Yeah, it's great. It's great because then you just put what you want in there. I do love just like a classic meat lasagna though.
It's so good.
Simple
I would eat some of that
meat,
right now.
Ricotta, tomato sauce. Yep. Forget about it. It's great.
Yeah.
It's fucking. I love it so much. Fucking Garfield over here.
Let's go. Hate Mondays, love lasagna.
Yeah.
Rob.
Well,
Rob is really considering.
I think so. I think we often make the mistake of conceding ground to the letter writer because obviously you wrote a letter. You must know what you're talking about. But I think the Bucatini slander is pretty discrediting.
Yeah.
And that on top of the like Pan Francisco thing,
I see,
makes me think that what we got here is a Bay Area poser. Where it's like, oh man, like, I'm all into great Italian food because San Francisco's got that great Italian community. I'm off to Ghirardelli Square to get some classy chocolate. It's fucking Ghirardelli. So I am not so sure that I am going to concede that Bucatini doesn't rule. I do like a thicker spaghetti.
So of course you like a bucatini, then.
Right?
Yeah, like I don't want that thin spaghetti. If we're going by
you're
like
an angel hair person, you're not a.
Yeah, no, because my favorite pasta dish is carbonara.
Yeah,
and that you kind of want it to hold up to a little bit of frying, and however, if I'm also going to toss this out. I understand why we're not considering gnocchi for this because it is kind of its own thing. Right. Yeah. But good gnocchi is real good.
Yeah.
And like deserves.
I think we can consider it. I think that you're allowed. I'm gonna again. The rules came in as they are.
You look up gnocchi, and it absolutely is gonna say potato pasta in like the definition.
Correct. Pasta's right there.
It absolutely has to. No, wait. People are calling them dumplings? What the fuck?
Dumplings are calling them dumplings.
What the
fuck? Huh.
See? Things get...
Hold on. I think
also,
risotto's more of a dumpling in my mind. Because aren't dumplings supposed to be, like, stuffed? You don't stuff a gnocchi.
What's the definition of a dumpling, then?
A broad class of dishes that consists of pieces of dough wrapped around a filling. Or of dough with no filling? That last bit of dough with no filling, I have never called something like that a dumpling. Like ravioli's a dumpling.
Ravioli is a dumpling.
Yeah,
ravioli is
100%.
More dumplingy for me than gnocchi.
What?
That's weird.
The humble orecchietta is just a little ears, little shells, little like it's.
Oh yeah, those are great. Yeah, the little shells, little shells. Shells also great.
Yeah,
but the little shells.
Yeah,
they're good.
Real good. The little cups full, like they get a little bit of sauce in them.
Yeah, definitely.
And again, fry it beautifully. But like my other favorite pasta dish is orecchietta and Italian sausage and rapini, sort of. And you can hold the sausage, like just frying up some blanched rapini with orecchietta is really delicious. Apologies if I'm butchering pronunciations. I'm not from Pan Francisco.
Please,
God damn it.
Francisco. They didn't do Pan Francisco. They did peas all the way through. So
It's pasta all the way down.
You know, pasta all the way down. God, I do wish I knew which of these you read, and also I wish I'd done a better job of grabbing the ones that I wanted to read. I had a bunch that I was like, I want to read these ones, and then I didn't come here last on Monday, so it didn't happen. Actually, can someone explain to me what the ketchup on French fries disaster was? I got like 3 emails.
It was a disaster. It was just
fine.
People asked our opinion for like, do you put like there's like you get a basket of fries. Some places just squeeze the ketchup all over the top of the basket.
Yeah,
and you just eat them. And we had feelings about that.
I see what you're saying. We got this in from Jacob from the UK. I'm sure you've had a flood of emails coming in over the last few days about the ketchup on fries fiasco. So here's my contribution. There's a significant form factor that's been missing from the conversation that needs to be remedied. In the UK, we tend to define between fries and chips. Thin burger restaurant style fries are fries. Anything more substantial are chips. Only a monster would soak their fries in sauce. Frankly, fries are a better vehicle for herbs and spices anyway. Shout out to a local restaurant's masala fries. Chips tend to be eaten from the paper they are wrapped in, and this gives a really good spread of chips, which means that you can and should cover them in whatever sauce you desire. They never get sodden with sauce because they are thicker, and you tend to eat them on the go. So like Cado says, that's the only way you're going to get sauce with them.
Yeah.
My only big caveat with them is that the best way to eat chips is soaked in as much salt and vinegar as possible. If you're eating from a tray, this means you also get to drink the vinegar afterwards. You're all fab, Jacob. I like salt and vinegar on chips. Or on fries.
Vinegar.
Fuck.
Malt vinegar.
I don't know about
fries
drinking the end though.
Yeah, that's.
I have a
much.
good friend who drinks. I have a good friend who, as a child, would straight up drink malt vinegar from the packets.
Damn.
At the shop.
Hell
That's how
yeah.
much.
Wow.
That's how good it was for them.
My favorite is definitely a spiced fry. This is a thing I would get regularly in Baltimore. Was Old Bay fries drizzled with with malt vinegar on top.
Ooh,
so
that sounds
fucking
so good.
The closest you can find like widely is if you go to
forever.
Five Guys and get their Cajun fries and put the malt vinegar on it. That's almost there, but Old Bay is special.
Old Bay is so good.
I love it.
Fucking
the grocery store across the street started selling it. I'm in heaven now.
Oh, Old Bay? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you see it
Is that
places.
not widely available?
Yeah, you see it places.
Yeah.
But it's just like literally 10 steps from my door. I can now get some Old Bay whenever I need it.
You can just get it. You just have it in the rotation in that way. I gotcha. One second. Let me come back through here. Rob, did you see this long email about cables?
No.
I'm not going to read it because it's so long.
Oh, great.
JS sent us a long cable. I'm going to just read the first. I'm going to start it. You tell me when you want me to stop. How about that? Because this is really for you. And you just tell me when you think you've had enough. I appreciate Rob's expressions of excitement towards rewiring his stereo, but I fear he might be disappointed if he jumps in too quickly. Without assessing the changes he wants to make in the character of his sound system, Rob could leave himself, his partner, and Mina in a difficult situation. That is why I must ask the question, does Rob know the difference a cable can make? In my experience, a cable can alter the overall sound of a stereo. The types of metal connectors, shielding, dielectric coating, and the metal in the plugs are all important. This does not necessarily mean paying a high price. What really matters is the type of sound a person wants to achieve. For example, some cables can soften hard, edgy amplifiers, while others can enhance dynamic contrast and bass articulation in overly smooth turntables. A cable can make voices sound more expressive or make large ensembles more diffused or focused. These changes in sound are not limited to RCA interconnects and speaker wire. I actually experience variations in sound between digital cords and notice the most significant differences between power cords. Adding up these many cable types can seem pricey, but budget brands like Belden, Copper Color, and Votex can run the gamut in terms of varying sound characteristics. I also do not want to overstate the importance of wires, as some people do not notice any difference in their sound. The relationship between the room, speaker, amplifier, and source components are still the most crucial parts in creating a cohesive system. So Rob, do you know what character of sound you are searching for? Do you believe in cables? Will you become a cable enthusiast? Or are cables a step too far? There is no wrong answer. Thanks, JS. We got through the whole thing.
Yeah.
Cado, you agreed with some of that.
Yo, power is important when it comes to audio. It's all electricity. And so depending on the shielding you have on power, like it can change how things sound, especially when you have
Well, we don't want line noise.
Well, obviously. But there's
We're all agreed, no line noise.
Yeah, nobody that's a baseline. Nobody wants line noise. But yeah, depending on, especially if those cables are running near other cables specifically, the amount of shielding and can cause like a difference in tone, depending on how sensitive the equipment is, right? There is a certain kind of baseline consumer product where it doesn't fucking matter, but you've stepped beyond that, Rob, right? You've got those speakers. They will probably be affected by these small incremental changes in whatever, whatever configuration you end up in.
So, regarding the Carver speakers, those came with very special cables,
right?
That MK's dad had. Like, these things are very well shielded, and they have very substantial, nay, inconveniently substantial plugs.
Oh, good.
So, they're like, each of them is coated in like a 1/4 inch of like really dense like rubber or plastic, or like rubberized plastic. So they're extremely shielded. As for everything else, I didn't skimp. I went with a larger gauge speaker cable for my rears. And so, like, I'm not picking up any like radio interference. The notion of like cleaning up right now, there's a bit of a rat's nest back there, and they're probably the concern about where power is flowing and its proximity to things may be well founded. But everyone can relax. I'm pulling this all apart.
Right.
It's good. Like, I am going to.
How do we get you to start, building your own cables? And, I think this is what the question askers. Yeah, absolutely.
No,
you get the wire.
But here's the other
you
thing.
get the right shielding, and you have to clip and put on the you're soldering shit. You're like, it's got to be perfect.
Cado.
Rob Zachnina in like a welding apron and goggles.
So one, that is not me. That is my partner. Like that.
Oh, you're
100%.
right.
Like
that's MK. Yeah.
Like this is
Rob
just like
supervising his partner in welding goggles and glasses or apron.
Right.
Wait, why do you have welding goggles?
Because it's fun looking.
Yeah.
Because it looks fun.
Well, sometimes you're working with higher temperatures, throwing more. Like depending on what kind of torch you're using. Once you move beyond soldering irons,
I don't think we have to move beyond soldering irons for wires.
No, we got it. I think we got to pull out the torch.
Sorry, I can't put the finishing touches on the setup without a thermal lance from Michael Mann's Heat. We gotta slowly graft this connection once the magnesium rod hits 4000 C. So the other, but here's the thing though. This whole email is like, isn't this the shit scammers say at like on like Amazon and Best Buy and such, where it's like, do not skimp on your digital HDMI cable. And it's like, that's not true.
Well, but the part of the scam there is that then the cables are still shit. The true part is that it can matter. And so what you have to do is you have to make them all from scratch. yourself, so you know what all the components are. You know what type of metal's in there. You know
Cado,
what type of plastic.
I know for a
is
fact
in
you
the
do not do
shielding.
this.
I do not.
we
I
know
don't.
this.
I don't.
We know this. We work with you.
Yeah,
homie.
I know. I'm just saying, if I was putting, look, I don't have the speakers that Rob has.
This
If
is
for
true.
some reason I came into that type of setup and would have to start wiring
you
things,
wouldn't.
I would.
You would have to.
Look, I
It
have a
would be
soldering
cheaper-
iron.
okay,
I
it
have
would be
soldered
cheaper
things
to
before.
buy a cable and cut it open and consider, is this good material, and then buy a duplicate cable than to learn how to create your own cabling. Maybe it would be cheaper in the long run. If you could create your own cabling, I bet you save a lot long term.
Here's the other thing, though. Everything is like, there's an order of priority. I think I would be a schmuck if I'm worrying about the cables when I still am not sold on, like, is this my forever receiver? You know, like the rewire I'm doing right now is like getting that NAD stereo amp into the mix. So now the carvers are going to be powered by a dedicated, is this going to fuck up my surround sound system? Absolutely. Are you kidding? This is not a good decision at all. It basically means my primary left and right channels are going to be Austin. They will not respond to volume control through the AV receiver.
my
That's the
God.
compromise I'm making.
Right.
Because I would need a more modern stereo
control
amp.
them? Yeah, how will you
You have
control
to go
them
up. You have to get up and turn a knob on the amp.
I see.
You know, the way
I
that
see.
God intended.
Right, yeah.
Exactly. See, Cado gets it.
In some ways, it's better because it maintains the direct connection between you, your flesh, and the what are these? What do you have to control manually now?
The volume.
Your stereo
Yeah.
system.
Amp.
You're
it's
all of
the
them,
electricity.
not just the. Okay, I'm okay.
So basically, Austin, imagine
I don't
this.
like this.
You're watching television.
Yeah, imagining.
And you're like, I'm having trouble hearing some of this. The volume.
Wait a second. Did they just say that wasn't a foul? I'll say, and I need to turn up the volume so I can hear what the commentators are saying in this scenario.
Now, in this scenario, when you turn the volume up using the AV receiver remote, the center channel increases in volume. The rear channel increases in volume.
Okay. Yes.
If I decide to fucking hang those Atmos speakers, like pointing at the ceiling, those will increase in volume.
Which you will, right?
I may.
You have them. You may
Might
as
as
The
well.
thing is, it's not that big a room. That's my actual conflict of like, there's a point where I'm like, how many sound waves can you throw into a small space before you're actually like watering the soup?
Right.
Fair.
Sure.
Because like I don't have a high ceiling, so like that whole thing where it's like, oh, you want those sound waves bouncing off the ceiling. I'm not sure I do because my ceiling is like 8 feet high.
Yeah, you touch it. Yeah.
Yeah. Point is, so all those would change volume, except my front left and my front right. The massive Carver speakers would continue on at their previous volume.
I see.
Say you're watching something noisy and you're like, holy shit, I should not have started watching Master and Commander at 11:30 at night. My
you hit
neighbors
the
are
mute
going
button.
to be angry.
Wait. You hit the mute button, then you're good because it's mute and it's not volume control?
Yes, that will work.
Okay.
Wait, hold on.
So we have
hold
a
on.
fix.
So if you turn, hold on. What is your TV still controlling volume at all?
Well, I'm using the eARC connection.
Okay.
So I can use the remote, but like the receiver is still like kind of sort of. So
This is where I think mute would still override.
Yeah,
right.
because
This is
mute would
that
just
was
cut
what I
the
was thinking,
right.
Yeah.
right.
But you can't adjust the signal at that level.
Now
Right.
a modern stereo amp is built to integrate with things like AVRs and make
So
it
why don't
responsive.
you get? Why are you not getting the modern one?
Because the NAD is heavily customized for these carvers.
Yeah. Yep.
And the
As they
board
should be.
has now been substantially modified. I can show you the circuit diagrams. I have
Good.
like 3 pages of schematics documenting what is inside that NAD because it's no longer like OEM at all. So I think I just have to go with it.
I have so many questions I'm not going to ask.
It weighs like 60 pounds.
It makes sense. There's a lot of electronics in there. A lot of.
If you can solve Rob's audio issue, gaming at vice.com.
I don't know that it's
I
an
have
issue.
one more question. Well, I think that there's a fix. There has to be a fix. There has to be a way around this, and probably the answer is something weird and custom to allow you to control those side speakers.
So the thing plugged into the eARC, is that still going to the head to the amp, or is that amp totally separate?
The stereo amp is totally separate.
Okay, right. There's the issue.
But they have to join up at some point.
Yeah, they meet. So there are RCA connections between the stereo amp and the AV receiver.
Yeah.
So that the AV receiver is like, send the stereo channels over this RCA and let that stereo amp fuck with it.
Right. And it doesn't control, so the receiver is not controlling.
Well,
the
maybe it'll
value?
surprise me, Cado.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll be like, oh damn, it attenuated the volume through that connection.
That'd
and I'll
be great.
be very impressed.
It feels like because that's how it works for all the other speakers, right? The only thing that you're adding is an amp in between that line,
not
right?
how it works.
No?
No.
The other speakers aren't connected to that receiver?
Because think about it. The stereo amp is running an entirely different power supply to those speakers.
Right. But it's just an amp. It's taking whatever signal it gets and amplifying it. But if there wasn't an amp there, right?
That's true.
Those speakers would.
There's a very funny thing that could happen here, though, Cado.
Yeah.
Which is, if the amp is different, that amp could change. It could be. There's a situation conceivable in which you hit up on the volume by 1.
Yeah.
And for every other speaker, it goes up 1.
Right.
Because the amp difference, it goes up 3
or
4.
Right. There's obviously
speakers.
Right. I mean, and that's what the knob might control, right? It's just like
maybe we gotta dial this bad boy in.
Yeah,
we gotta airdrop. We gotta parachute.
So the thing is, this NAD.
What's an NAD?
It's a brand. It's a manufacturer.
Oh, I see. Gotcha. Yep.
It's the wattage is very high to drive these two speakers.
Right.
You don't say they're bigger than people.
We're talking
it makes
like
sense.
Yeah, but like it's
the thing I would be worried about is coming out of that receiver, there being low-level line noise that you haven't heard before that is going to get amplified.
Oh my god!
I'm sorry.
Well, Cado, if that happens, if that happens, this thing, it's 3 years old, but it predates the new consoles. It's garbage now. Into the bin with it. We need the new Marantz flagship.
Oh my god!
It's the price of a car.
Yeah.
But really, can you put a price on variable refresh and better audio
he's already
processing?
Looked it up. He's already been looking at the.
He's already gone down this road.
Oh my god.
Jesus. One more question. Comes in from Waz. Shout out to Waz. They say, I logged into my work laptop at 10 p.m. to quickly check something that had been. Did you already ask?
No, but I was like, I have thoughts. Go on with this. Yeah.
Okay. I logged into my work laptop at 10 p.m. to quickly check something that had been bugging me and saw that a manager had scheduled a meeting at 8 p.m. after everyone was off work for 7 a.m. the next day.
Oh.
So again, it's 10 p.m. You open your laptop real quick to check something. Maybe you go, oh man, I wonder if they finally sent that second Mario Golf code or a Skyward Sword code. And instead what you see is your manager has scheduled a 7 a.m. meeting for you, and they did that at 8 p.m. after the office closes. If you were in that predicament, would you pretend to not see the meeting invite until the next day when you log in at 8 a.m.? Or do you wake up early and show up anyway? Keep in mind, everyone in management is pretty chill, so if you dipped an hour early that day to make up for starting an hour early for the meeting, no one would question it. Regards, Waz.
I didn't see that email. I never saw that. What email? What invite? What meeting?
7 a.m. is so early.
God.
It's earlier than the. It's earlier.
So-
than
Well, that's the thing. It's earlier than you're supposed to be in
Depends
work
on the team.
normally, right?
Like,
Well,
how normal is a 7 a.m. meeting? Like, that's the first question. Usually everyone's there by 8. How normal is a 7 a.m. thing?
that doesn't make any sense. If 8 is the time when everyone's in, why isn't it for 8:30? Like, I don't know, right? Like, this seems weird. This already seems like you're doing it earlier than people are getting in, later than everyone's already left. Like, what is happening? It feels almost like it maybe is an emergency or something, but who knows?
What I think what I do is, maybe it's an emergency, in which case it's emergency. We talk about what the degree of emergency is, how invested I am in the project.
If it's an emergency,
If
you put details in the meeting invite.
The meeting should be very clear.
Is there an email being like, "Hey, sorry, this is coming late"? Like, is there any other communication, or it's just like the meeting showed up in everyone's calendars, right? Like,
I probably email my boss and say I'm not going to make the 7 a.m. meeting. I'll see you at 8. Like, I have things to do then. What I have to do then, sleep, is not any of their business.
Yeah.
Like I probably. Your boss doesn't know how many errands you're running before you get to the office. They don't know what you have to do before if you have to drop off kids, if you have to take care of other people in your family.
Maybe you just need to lie under the covers for 45 minutes staring at the ceiling,
genuinely, maybe you fucking do.
Do this again.
Yes. Right before I stepped back 2 years ago here, we had started, not right before, it was like 6 months before, we had started doing all of the EICs doing a daily meeting that was at 8:30. And so that was like, I was already a late arriver at work and a late stayer. That was the kind of category I was in for sure. And so doing those every morning was just brutal, and it made me less productive throughout the entire day because of needing to adjust my schedule to them. And I never found like a good rhythm with them where I was like, oh, I'll just go to bed. I was going to bed earlier than I had since like high school. You know what I mean?
Your cycle is your cycle. After
my cycle is my cycle. And it can adjust within a few hours. But doing it every day ended up just breaking me, because I would get to the weekends and my cycle would slip back to where I felt most naturally comfortable, where I was most productive late at night, etc. And so, your boss doesn't need to know what you do from 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. So, but I would probably email back and just say, I'm not making this. I'm not going to make it to this one. Because that's the person I am.
If there's like an email communication where it's like, we're talking about this, that's one thing. But if a meeting just appears in your calendar, I'm not saying shit. No, like you didn't even try to reach out to say like, hey, this is obviously weird, but we're doing this.
And that's the other thing. A calendar invite isn't a conversation.
No.
That is not binding. I do not care who you are. Unless there's an email like explaining what this is about. And furthermore, if it's like, so the 7 a.m. meeting, again, my question is, how normal is it that like just routinely it's expected, like somebody just need to check, like if everyone on the team, just as a matter of culture, tends to be like checking email by 6:30. Okay, sure. I guess like occasionally everyone sort of expects that you sort of keep an eye on stuff like that. But in general, like if it's going to be, we need to be here a full hour early to like talk about this thing urgently. You have my text number for that. If it's that important, like use it, like break glass or
just send the email to begin with.
Yeah.
Like if there isn't an actual email there,
I will assume you fucked up. I will assume you misclicked on calendar and like just hit the wrong place. Because what would be way worse is showing up for the 7 a.m. meeting and the person who called it is not there. And they're like, oh, sorry, my bad. Sorry, I'll be there in 90 minutes. I'm taking my kid to school.
Yeah. We have a late breaking news item.
This is the Nibelian thing? It's about a Steam Deck.
It's about the Steam Deck, correct. Steam Deck, SteamDeck.com. The Steam Deck, there's 2 different links here. I'll link them. Yeah, you got that. There's this, and then there's like full-on websites at this point. So it's not just like this little thing. It's a
oh, wow.
Steam Deck. All-in-one portable PC gaming. Steam Deck brings Steam games and features you love to a powerful, convenient form factor.
Why does shit look like the Game Gear?
It's big.
Switch.
It's so big. Go to the SteamDeck.com one. There's an image of someone holding it, and you can see the scale of it.
What is the size
I'm not
of the
saying no
screen?
necessarily.
It's got back buttons. Look at that. Damn.
Back buttons? Wait, where are the back? Oh, yeah, there's a bunch of them back there, huh?
The most gaming power you have ever held. Well,
Calm down. Calm down.
I
bud.
just know there that you never wrapped your arms around one Ricardo Contreras.
The most gaming power available. Steam without compromises. So what is it running? What's it running? Is it running Windows?
Control with comfort. The Steam Deck was built for extended play sessions, whether you're using thumbsticks or trackpads, with full-size controls positioned perfectly within your reach. Something
so
about
big.
this section.
I'm sorry, it's so big.
The rear of the device is sculpted to comfortably fit a wide range of hand sizes. They just have like a small, like little GIF of the analog stick outside of the case, kind of moving around, and it feels like they're trying to call out drift and saying this thing won't have drift at all, which is not how analog sticks work.
That's not how.
That's just going to happen eventually to anything. I mean, the Switch had it worse than most things, but still. There's a dock too.
How much?
There's a dock too.
How much is this?
I think
400
Steam, I think.
400.
But someone just said, someone in the chat we're in said, there's a 650 version.
Oh, of course there is.
Oh my
For real
God.
gamers.
It's like, let me log into my Steam 7. That's not my password. That's the first letter.
Look,
of my
once
Steam
you
Guard
spend all
code.
this
Don't
money
worry
on
about
cables, are you going to hook a $400 Steam Deck up to...
it. Am I hooking this thing up to anything? Does this
Steam
hook up
Deck.
to a TV? What am I doing with this? It's just a switch. It's just like a mobile thing, right?
You go the powerful and convenient. I don't understand how this works.
I think it's just a. There is
Base
a
model
dock, too.
only
I
has
see,
64
I see.
gigs of internal storage. This thing is
Shut the
streaming
fuck
off
up.
your gaming rig, dude. Or it's
No way.
or it's
No,
going to be
it isn't.
streaming off something.
No. It has external. It has a versatile. It shows on
Uh-huh.
and it has a little what's it called? SD card that you can put in, so you can expand the
I
memory.
see.
Yeah, but I'm saying the base model, 64 gigs?
Yeah, that's what the Switch comes with, isn't it? Or no,
Yeah,
the
but-
new one, the OLED one comes with that.
No, man. I don't know.
It's not enough. It's not
It's
enough for
not.
anything.
I think it's got to be doing something. It's got to be up to something.
Ah,
Oh, well, to be
I don't
like,
think
these are NVMe SSD cards. Like those are more expensive than a regular SATA SSD. So like that's why
Yeah.
it costs so much more. Because you gotta get that form factor. Like you gotta fit it in. Yeah, that's. I still wait.
These
Where
tech
is?
specs here?
God, that is big. Jesus Christ,
It's huge. It's
huge.
On the other, it's like
16
the
gigs of
model they've got
RAM.
playing Jedi Order. It's like you're holding
yeah.
a portable TV.
Yeah.
1280
Oh, they got
by
somebody here
800
playing
resolution.
Disco Elysium. That's fun.
Yeah.
Actually, that would be
I played
neat
that-
to play that.
I
on.
played that via Steam streaming, so I feel like I've played it in worse
Your
situation
Steam
than
library
this.
is already on your deck. Play your
What's
games
it
from Steam.
running? Is it running Linux? What is this? Your Steam library? Does that mean anything with a Linux bill?
Software. Welcome to your new home. The all new home screen is everything you love about
A
Steam.
new
in one
Steam
place.
operating
Yeah,
system.
It's a
I
Steam
found
OS.
On Steam Deck, your games will run a different operating system than the one on your desktop PC. It's a new version of Steam OS, built with Steam Deck in mind and optimized for a handheld gaming experience. It comes with Proton, a compatibility layer that makes it possible to run your games without any porting work needed from developers. Interesting. For Deck, we're vastly improving Proton's game compatibility and support for anti-cheat solutions by working directly with vendors. Quote, hold on to your butts. And then you click on and it says, it's a Linux system. You know this. The new version of SteamOS is optimized for handheld gaming, but it won't get in your way with other stuff. And it won't get in your way with other stuff, but if you want to get your hands dirty, head on out to the desktop. Weird. Okay. Weird. Well, that exists. I don't know that I want to spend that much money on it.
No.
It's neat.
It is.
It's weird. The button set up, for people who haven't seen this yet, because they're just listening to us gawk at it, there is a D-pad in the all the way top left. All the way top left.
Yeah.
Too far
Too
up,
far
I
up to
think.
the top left.
In fact, all of the buttons are too far up on this thing, it feels. Then there is a view button. I don't know what a view button is, but it's calling itself the view button to the right of that. And then to the right of that is the left thumbstick. Below that is a trackpad. And below that is a Steam button. There's a button is the Steam button.
Yeah.
Then, and a speaker. Then there's a big screen. There's mics on the front. Then on the other side, top right thumbstick, options button, A, B, X, Y buttons, another trackpad, and a button that says quick access. I don't know what that's for, but sure. Then there's an R1, R2, L1, L2, some volume buttons, a USB-C port, and then there's also an L4 and L5 buttons on the back, plus an R4, R5 buttons on the back. And the thumbsticks push in, so that's L3 and R3. That's a lot of buttons.
Display resolution 1280 by 800.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
I want to hold one. I want to know what the build quality looks
7-inch diagonal
feels like
on this. Is that also the? What is the size of the new Switch?
I just don't go places anymore.
Well, but what if you go on like your bed? You know, then you have it in your hands instead of having to sit in a chair.
My bed is for sleeping.
What about your couch?
Then I can just play on my computer.
Oh, right. You got that lapdog.
Yeah, I do.
Excuse me?
Do you not remember the lapdog?
I don't. I frankly do not remember the lapdog.
Here, Austin, let me show you the Corsair lapdog.
Corsair lapdog. Lapdog. It just says in all caps here.
Yeah.
You want to sit down for this.
Oh, right. Wait, isn't that the same? Oh, the Steam said hold on to your butts. You want to sit down for this. I get it. Yeah, living room gaming with zero compromise. The lapdog. You got one of these?
Yeah.
How's it work?
I mean, it works well. Like, it's got a very long cable. I can just drag this thing across the room.
We needed one of these a couple of weeks ago when we did E3. Badly.
We should get one for the next
Get a
one.
lapdog.
You need the office. You need one for the office.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
Now,
office
here's the
lapdog.
thing. There's I think only Corsair keyboards fit the lapdog.
That's some bullshit.
But
That's
you
some
can
bullshit.
just sit something on the lapdog.
Right, of course.
Yeah.
When we requisition this, I would prefer that we just call it so it's called a lapdog gaming control center. Just write down that we need a gaming control center and that it's a deal at the price that it is, because that sounds
all our bosses listen to this, right?
No, don't.
One of our bosses was like, I think 3 terabytes is too much storage for your gaming rig.
Oh, I
was
that.
like,
we got 4.
One of those is just Warzone, and you know this, Jason.
Look,
God.
To be fair, that was a very expensive SSD. We found a cheaper one. It's gonna be okay, I think.
Good. I'm glad.
Oh, you compromised on that?
Yeah. It's a whole thing. We'll talk later. But also, I think we can measure this. We need the tech specs of this. We just need to measure and make sure whatever keyboard we get for that computer fits in there.
Fits.
Yeah, it'll be
Let me tell you, or fits.
I'll use
on
a Corsair keyboard. Fits on it, right? Yeah.
Because I will be damned if I don't use my ASIO retro keyboard, which looks like an old-timey typewriter and just feels tremendous.
Old-timey typewriter?
Yeah,
it does have the old-timey typewriter keys.
Oh, shit.
Not actual keys.
Yeah.
Nice.
What are they called? What are the keycaps? Is that what they're called?
Yeah, keycaps.
But
is this?
It's real good.
Little circular keycaps on top of switches, like bare switches. What is happening here? I'm trying to parse what is happening with this keyboard. Is it still
We have to stop looking at things and describing on the internet. We have to end this
keyboard?
podcast.
Okay,
we have to end this podcast. We have to. I need to eat lunch and then maybe go back to bed. I met up with an old friend last night who I haven't seen in a while. I had too many drinks, so I'm not feeling good.
Damn.
So 2.5 hour podcast would maybe convince you otherwise, but
wait, we've been going for 2.5 hours?
Yeah.
There's 2:25.
We've been talking about cables for like an hour of that.
Yeah, this ain't good radio, but it's nice hanging out.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
That's the problem right there.
I think you just hit on the real problem with all of Waypoint's like growth initiatives, which is like, people will love it if we do this. And it's like,
Trust
you know what we
us.
love doing? Hanging out and having good times.
Just having good times. I'm Austin Walker. You can follow me on Twitter at Austin_Walker. Where can people find you, Rob?
Snuggled up under my lapdog at Rob Zachney.
Cado.
It really sounds like something else is happening over at Shay Rob.
He's cuddling with Mina. Mina is in the background right now on the couch.
That's true.
Desperate for company.
I have 2 dogs. two good girls.
Cado, one more time. Sorry, I stepped on it.
_Cado_ appears.
Awesome. And you can follow Patrick at Patrick Klepek. Follow everything we do. Twitter.com/waypoint, waypoint.vice.com. Waypointplus.com is where you can go to support everything we do. Rob and Patrick have been continuing their Resident Evil 1 remake, whatever that's HD, Let's Play, their playthrough. This week. They did one on Tuesday. How far in are you guys now? You still in the mansion? Or you moved on?
Wait, there's more than the mansion?
I see. I see. It's fine. So yeah.
Does that mean we're not very far?
No, you're making progress. I think you need a big session. I think you need a big day.
I killed a big snake. No, I chased off a big snake.
You chased off that big snake, I think. Yeah. So go tune into that. Again, we have a bunch of stuff in the Waypoint Plus feed. No Sudden Move podcast. We're recording the Forever Purge podcast tomorrow. That's where Patrick had to go. And there's that interview with the Resident Evil expert that should be in the feed. Is that in the feed now, Cado?
Yes, that is that.
There we go.
By the time you're hearing this, for sure, it is.
I wish I could listen to that.
You could, but you can't.
No, I have to stay pure.
Wow.
Right. Sure.
I can't learn the story behind the game until I played through the game.
That
I
makes
don't know
sense.
that there were any spoilers.
No, Rob's
I
right.
think you're okay.
No, Rob should stay pure. Stay pure, Rob Zachney. Stay pure. I'm gonna start that. That's our new outro. No more fuck capitalism. Go home. At the end of every episode, I go, stay pure, Rob Zachney. Stay pure. But also, fuck capitalism. Go home. Peace.
Joy, and I'm gonna go to a movie theater. I couldn't even tell on the. I ordered it in the app, and then it's like, do you want snacks? And I was like, well, this is a shitty theater. You just don't have I can't get food here. I was like, order
them snacks.
Can I go to the counter, or are they theaters doing counters these days? Can I bring my own water?
I think they are. Yeah.
I think okay, all right. But when I looked at the snack thing, it was pick up at the counter, or we'll bring it to you for $2. I was like, that counter's 10 feet from the theater.
Yeah.
I think I can go grab that. And they were not an option, which made me wonder if I'm sure.
Oh man, you know what I discovered though, being in a theater? I've gotten so used to just being at home and never having any reason. I'll just use the bathroom. It's convenient. That a single
Right.
Dr. Pepper, I was like, I gotta go to the bathroom.
I gotta go to the bathroom immediately.
Oh no.
Yeah.
If I'm the only one there, can I turn to the projector? Hey, can you pause that? I know it's digital. I'll be back.
Just push the button.
Just hit it. Just hit it.
They should
rewind 30
there in the app. It should have a pause button. It was you have a buffer of 5 minutes that you can add. Oh
god! If you open a vote with the other people in the theater, hey, we all
coming up.
This, right? We could re-up.
We have does 50% of the people in the audience have to go to the bathroom? All right, sorry, we're pausing.
This trailer's been up forever. I'm pretty much out of my popcorn. Anyone else still a little munchy?
Yeah,
all right, break.